Charles Carson, 34, US Air Force veteran. Divorced, no children. He was married for 4 years to Selena Chavez, whom he considered the center of his universe. We lived in a suburb of Seattle, Washington. Selena worked at a law firm where she began an affair with colleague Alan Parsons. After high school, I enlisted in the United States Air Force, where I spent 8 years in the Blue Berets. At age 26, he quit and went to college, earning an associate's degree in business administration. My grandfather prepared me to manage his company, West Coast Aeronautics, and taught everything he knew. We started with a small team, 3 office employees, 1 engineer, and 25 technicians. Thanks to contracts with Boeing Aircraft, the company grew, and by the time of my divorce, we had 30 technicians, 5 office workers, 4 engineers, and myself. One day, I was in the city center for an annual medical examination for company employees. As I left the clinic, I noticed my wife's car, a BMW SUV, pull into the hotel parking lot. Marriott across the road. I couldn't understand what she was doing there instead of being at work on the other side of town. Then I drove up to a disgusting mustard-color Corvette, and he turned out to be a slippery guy in a 3-piece. He grabbed my wife by the butt and pulled me into a clearly lewd embrace. My blood pressure rose sharply. I started to cross the street and followed them into the hotel lobby. I took out my phone and dialed the number of our private investigator, Pete, with whom we collaborated on various cases. I told him that I had seen where I was and that I wanted him to start tailing them. I went outside, took a picture of the license plate Corvette, and began to wait for Pete. Pete Donegal, my longtime friend and private detective, arrived soon after. I sent him a photo of Selena, showed him her car and Corvette. Listen, Chuck, maybe there's an innocent explanation for this. Go to work and let me figure it out. But from the expression on his face, I realized that he himself did not believe in it. I went to the office and sat down at the computer to search for divorce lawyers. I found one candidate that I liked, called, and made an appointment. The secretary said they had 45 minutes of free time. I told Lainey, my girl Friday, that I had a personal matter and went to see a lawyer. I arrived at the office of Mrs. Deborah Guest, a lawyer, in record time. She was cute, petite, with short hair, blue eyes, and long, slender legs. She asked how she could help me. I explained what I saw. He said that I don't know anything for sure, but I would like to know my rights and opportunities. The news was disappointing. I learned that in Washington state there is a principle no-fault divorce, and that the desire of one party is sufficient for a divorce. I gave her Pete's contact information and permission to access any information he obtained. She said that a divorce would likely have a huge impact on my finances, home, and business. I left her a substantial advance and went home. She warned me not to do anything stupid and to behave as usual, although even she did not seem to believe in the innocence of the situation. I arrived home, tired, but in high spirits. There was a can of cold beer waiting for me in the refrigerator, and I happily sat down in the living room chair with my legs stretched out on the coffee table. The clock showed about 7 in the evening when I heard the sound of the front door opening. Selena appeared on the threshold graceful, but noticeably tired. A bottle of red wine glittered in her hand. "Hard day?" I asked innocently, looking up from my glass. She grinned tiredly, opening the wine and pouring herself an almost full glass. "Yes, terribly heavy. We were at the conference all day. Until the very last hour, we sat over various documents, discussing the details of the case. I'm just squeezed like a lemon." "About?" I drawled, taking a sip of beer. "Was it a divorce case?" My voice was calm, too calm. The question sounded like casual curiosity, but I noticed how Selena froze for a split second before raising the glass to her lips. Her gaze darted to the side for a moment, and then she replied, "No, this was a product defect lawsuit. Why are you asking?" I shrugged, looking away, as if the question had been asked just like that, without a second thought. "For no reason," I answered calmly. "I just thought." I took another sip and added, as if by chance, "Oh, by the way, today I had my annual physical from the company." In the city center, in the clinic. You know, the one right across the street from the Marriott Hotel. Selena stopped drinking. Her fingers convulsively squeezed the stem of the glass. When I came out, I continued, as if not noticing her reaction, I thought I saw you in the hotel parking lot. You were standing next to a silver car and talking to someone. But of course it couldn't be you, could it? You were at the conference until the very last hour. I paused, watching the color slowly drain from her face. She turned so pale that shadows appeared on her cheeks. Her lips trembled, and she quickly looked away. Are you okay, honey? I asked with soft concern in my voice. Selena jumped out of her chair as if she had been stung by a wasp and almost ran to the bathroom. I heard the door slam shut, followed a moment later by the muffled, suffocating sound of vomiting. I placed the empty bottle on the table and slowly leaned back in my chair, allowing a small smile to touch the corners of my lips. The night that followed this conversation was icy. We lay on opposite ends of the bed, and even the blanket seemed to separate us like an insurmountable wall. The silence between us was echoing, and the shadows on the walls seemed alive, reminding us of the questions we were both afraid to ask out loud. The next day, Tuesday, I went to my grandfather. I entered his office and closed the door. Okay, what have you done? He grinned. Grandfather, I'm almost sure that Selena is cheating on me. Yesterday, I saw her go into the Marriott. I asked Pete to follow her and went to see a lawyer. Sorry, Grandpa. Why are you apologizing to me, boy? You didn't do anything wrong, right? No, sir, as far as I know. I hate to say it, but even your grandmother, and I thought it was just a matter of time. What are you going to do? Divorce her if I can. I'm just glad you didn't bequeath the company to me, that's all. And I was just about to do this. Your grandma wants to move to Florida. She says the winters here have become unbearable for her. He thought for a moment and then said, We'll see what the private investigator and your lawyer say, and then we'll sit down and talk. The next day, around 11 a.m., my lawyer called me. She said to meet her at her office at 3 p.m. Don't be late, she said. I arrived at 2:45. Deborah was waiting for me outside her office and showed me to the conference room. My private detective, Pete, was waiting for us there. We sat down at the table. Chuck, it turned out worse than you thought. I didn't think it was possible unless they were planning to kill me, but as they say, the blows just keep falling. It turns out they were a couple before you even met her. Her boyfriend found out about you and your potential inheritance. They came up with this plan. She would marry you, stay married until she had access to your money, and then file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and abuse both physical and mental. They were just waiting for the right moment. I have notes, photographs, and videos that I gave to your lawyer. He grinned. Whatever you said 2 days ago shocked her. They are now on pins and needles and afraid of every sound. Deborah took the floor. Now we have an advantage. Do you have any idea when your grandfather plans to hand over control to you? I smiled. I think my grandmother is pushing him to move to Florida because of the weather here. So I think it will be soon. My grandfather said he wants to hear what you learned, and then we will sit down and discuss everything. It looks like he already has a plan and a decision made. We should take him up on his offer. I'll organize a meeting. Thank you both. I appreciate it. Pete shook my hand. Hold on, buddy. We can handle it. Deborah put her hand on my shoulder and said, And again, don't do anything stupid and don't give away our cards. I promised I wouldn't. I talked to my grandfather and told him what I found out. He told me to arrange a meeting as soon as possible and promised to brief us on his plan. I made an appointment 2 days later, and we got to work. My lawyer began to file a claim, and Pete continued to monitor. My future ex-wife continued her daily escapades. The evidence was piling up. I started falling asleep on the couch or in the guest bedroom. She was angry. I didn't care. I was no longer going to settle for leftovers, no matter the cost. Friday was cold and rainy. I came to work early. My grandfather was already there for negotiations with some important people. Michelle, our secretary, didn't say who they were. only that they had been sitting there for about 2 hours, and it was only 8:30 in the morning. What was happening? They left at noon and returned at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The meeting ended only at 3:30. My grandfather and I went to see a lawyer. We arrived at Mrs. Guest's a little before 4 o'clock and went into the conference room. Everyone was offered coffee and water, and then we got down to business. Deborah began. "Mr. Carson, I have prepared divorce papers and a restraining order for your protection. We can strike at any moment." Pete added, "They are discussing not to wait any longer. He has already contacted some dubious characters about an accident that might happen to you. If necessary, we can contact the police." My grandfather spoke. "About 3 months ago, representatives of British Aerospace contacted me about the possible sale of my company. I told them I wasn't interested, but they kept insisting. They then said they valued the company at $35 million. This impressed me because the last estimate I saw was $25 million. I was going to discuss this with Charlie, but then he came to me with his problem. Then I contacted the British, and we began negotiations. I told them I would sell it for $25 million, but the deal had to close within 2 weeks. My plan is to sell the company to them, make Charles president, and then move to Florida. He will be able to tell his wife that the British have offered a large contract, which will be signed in 2 weeks. This will significantly increase the value of the company. Then he can divorce her. You will not have any financial ties to the company other than your salary." Deborah said this could have a significant impact on the divorce, depending on what his salary would be. "We can install it at any level corresponding to the position held. But if it looks like he's trying to hide his income, it could negatively impact the court's decision on divorce." I thought for a moment and then said, "What if I just threaten to ruin their relationship if she doesn't sign the papers?" "It might work if they get scared enough," Deborah said. We decided to do just that. That evening, I returned home in high spirits and told my wife the good news with a smile. She immediately laughed with joy and ran into my arms. Her kisses could wake the dead, but I still did not succumb to her charms. I told her that I was feeling bad because of the stress and work of the last few days, and we should give it time to sort things out. She agreed dejectedly and went to the kitchen to prepare the drinks. However, there she made a call to her lover. She told Parsons the made-up good news, and they decided to have their divorce papers ready within a week of signing the contract. She then returned to the living room with a glass of wine for herself and wild turkey for me. I only found out about the secret call the next day, when Pete showed me a recording of the conversation from the cloned phone. The British made an offer and agreed to appoint me as General Director of the American branch British Aerospace North America. My salary was $85,000 a year, just $3,500 more than she was making. The company has changed owners. Grandfather received the money into his account. Pete informed me that I would be served with the divorce papers on Monday afternoon at work, so we arranged for a process server to serve them on her at her workplace that morning. On Sunday evening, she said that we would celebrate on Monday. I chuckled and said I was looking forward to it. Monday morning, I supposedly went to work, but instead I went to Pete's cabin on Vashon Island. By 9 in the morning, my phone was ringing off the hook. According to rumors, she arrived at work and took the elevator with the process server. The secretary called my wife, and she went to find out what was the matter. Standing in front of her was the same man with whom she was riding in the elevator. "Are you Mrs. Selina Carson?" he asked. "Yes, how can I help?" "I wish you a wonderful day. You have been notified," he said, taking his phone out of his pocket and taking a photo of her with the divorce papers in her hands. She stood there in absolute disbelief and then flew into a rage. She screamed, called her friend, and began to curse. He led her into a small meeting room and closed the door. "What's happening?" She thrust the divorce papers at him and screamed. "Look what he did. He grabbed the papers and skimmed the text. Bastard, he got ahead of us. He tried to catch up with the process server, but he had already disappeared. They found Deborah Guest's business card in the envelope and called her. Law firm of Guest, O'Hara and Fielding. "How can I help?" answered the secretary. "I need Mrs. Guest urgently." "Just a minute, sir." He was connected almost immediately to Deborah Guest, as if they were already expecting his call. "Oh, Mr. Parsons, how kind of you to call. I assume Mrs. Carson is with you now." "Yes, I represent Mrs. Carson, and she." "This is extremely interesting, considering that you are listed in the lawsuit as a co-defendant. I advise you to carefully review all the papers before making any statements. You should also pay attention to accusations of adultery." He began to mutter something incomprehensible. Deborah continued. "So, the situation is like this. Tomorrow at 14 o'clock, you both come to see me. We will discuss all claims and make you a one-time offer. Take it or leave it. Don't be late." She hung up and smiled at her assistant. "Tomorrow will be interesting." She called Charles at the lodge and said that everything was ready for tomorrow. He bought seafood for dinner and had a great night's sleep. The next morning, he leisurely sat on the veranda, drank coffee, and relaxed. At noon, he showered, shaved, and dressed for his new life. He returned to Seattle and arrived at Mrs. Guest's office at 1:15 p.m., a little earlier than his friend Pete. They walked into Deborah's office and each received a bottle of water. Her bailiff was never able to find Charlie, so Parsons brought the counter decree with him, and he and Selena showed up at exactly 2 p.m. They entered the conference room, clearly ready to fight, and Parsons walked up to Charlie, handing him a large yellow envelope. "Now, you have been given an official notice." Deborah snatched the envelope from Charlie's hand and unceremoniously tossed it into the trash can. "And now, Mr. Parsons, when we're done with this formality of yours." She turned to Pete. "Mr. Donegal, please." Pete handed out photos, phone transcripts, and played the first of 4 videos he had. "Mrs. Carson, you have been a very busy lady the last 2 weeks. According to our records, your adultery with Mr. Parsons has been going on, by your own admission, for at least 5 years, which covers the entire period of your marriage." Selena became furious, her Latin temper flared, and she tried to climb across the table towards me. I just sat there and grinned as my anger began to boil over. This day was clearly not going well for Parsons. All this is unacceptable in court. You have nothing, and the flippant way in which you dismissed Mrs. Carson's counterclaim shows that you are not negotiating from a position of strength, he smirked. Mrs. Guests accepted the challenge. "You're right, Mr. Parsons. It's a shame your brain doesn't work as well as your penis. Now this is what will happen. Mrs. Carson will sign all the papers and accept the divorce due to irreconcilable differences. She would receive half the bank's assets, no maintenance, the house would be sold, and the profits would be divided equally. She will not claim any other joint assets and will leave the house immediately. The divorce will be as peaceful as possible. But his grandfather made him CEO, and half of the company belongs to me. It's just a ploy to squeeze me out of his money," she protested, bursting into tears. Parsons put his hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down. Deborah grinned sinisterly. "Oh, you don't know, do you? Charles' grandfather sold the company to British Aerospace with the understanding that his grandson would remain CEO until he decided to leave. This is a purely nominal position. He has no financial interest in the company. And as for inadmissibility in court, we don't care. If she refuses, we take off the gloves. The lawsuit will be changed to adultery, and it will become a public matter. The first complaint will be filed with the Washington State Bar, citing you, your company, and Mrs. Carson for inappropriate relationships. Oh, and the police and FBI already know about your shady friends. They are now being arrested and interrogated just now." Deborah looked at her watch. "Right now. After that, a lawsuit will be filed for conspiracy to defraud. And then we will present evidence of your friendship to your law office. How do you think this will affect your career? Now, I'm sure this sounds like blackmail or extortion. Rest assured, this is so. But in our opinion, you yourself brought it to this. My client just wants to end the relationship because his heart was torn and trampled. But he also has a thirst for revenge. The ball is in your court. Do what you need to do, but know that you have 24 hours to respond, starting now. By the way, if you're recording this, know that we have an electronic jammer and a white noise generator running. Besides the fact that you didn't warn us about it. Your brain really doesn't work, does it, Mr. Parsons? Parsons looked like his sushi lunch was about to come back outside. He reached into his jacket pocket, but immediately realized that he had been exposed. But Selina was beside herself with rage. She wanted revenge. I will destroy you in court. I will ruin you and your family. I'll make earrings out of your body. Parsons turned sharply to her. Shut up, bitch. You assured me that he was a stupid military ass. Do you understand what they have? You understand? They have a time bomb in their hands. If it blows up, we'll both lose our jobs and probably go to jail. Sign the damn paper. The look on Selina's face was priceless, matched only by Mrs. Guest's smirk. I was glad she was on our side. I leaned towards her and whispered that I thought I loved her. She smiled. Sorry, but I'm afraid my wife doesn't agree. But the thought is very flattering. Selina signed everything, having received assurances that we would not tell anyone anything. We didn't tell them that we hadn't actually contacted the police or the FBI. 3 months later, I was free. My grandfather opened an account for me, and within 3 months, he transferred $10 million into it. I paid all my taxes. We had a policy of hiring veterans and former prisoners who needed a second chance. So several of the 40 employees were very grateful for their jobs, but sad that I was leaving. I wrote 40 checks for $10,000 each, and on my last day of work, I called everyone together, playing the role of an early Santa Claus. I told them I was leaving because of a lot of bad memories and expressed my gratitude for everything they had done for us. One person in particular stood out, Angelo Cardona. Italian by birth, Angie was the only child in the family. Yes, his family was involved in the underworld, but his father wanted a better life for him. Angelo was sent to military school, and after graduation he joined the army. Unfortunately, he was wounded and lost the lower part of his right leg. After his honorable medical retirement, we hired him. He loved the work environment, and everyone loved him. His mother dreamed of grandchildren, but lately Angelo could not find the right girl. He looked at my experience and became more careful in relationships. Grandfather insisted that the British include a clause guaranteeing the jobs of all employees for 10 years after the sale of the company. I paid the legal fees, taxes, and private investigator fees and treated Mrs. Guest and her wife to a top-class dinner. As a result, I had a little less than $8 million left in my account. I opened an investment account with my father's friend and a checking account for everyday expenses. I took $2 million with me in traveler's checks and invested the rest. Oh yeah, before I left Washington State, 2 of my ex-employees stole that asshole's Corvette, stripped it for parts, and sent him to the hospital for 2 weeks. He had to abstain from sex and other entertainment for a long time. They said it was their gratitude for everything I did for them. It's nice to have good friends. So here I am in Alaska, driving southeast on the Seward Highway toward Girdwood, returning home from Anchorage after shopping. I go to Anchorage about once a month for groceries and necessary things. After snow falls, I try not to leave the hut until spring. I told my grandfather about my decision to leave and asked if I could live in his hut for a while. He responded by FedExing me the title deeds to the house. He explained that Grandma liked Florida, and he and Grandpa bought a small sailboat. They go to sea 3 times a week, weather permitting, and although the grandfather was never able to persuade the grandmother to wear a bikini, she sunbathes topless on the high seas. Too much information, grandfather. She's my grandmother, damn it. So I'm driving home in my Ford Excursion for what may be my second to last trip of the season. I had my head in the clouds, thinking about how bad my life was, and had no idea that it was about to change. I got divorced 2 years ago thanks to that prostitute and her lover. When I arrived in Anchorage, I bought a Jeep Wrangler and headed to my cabin. The house wasn't in such bad shape. I found a guy that was recommended to me and hired him to do the improvements and renovations. I wanted to add a 3-car garage with solar panels on the roof and electronic fencing for the backyard. I also dreamed of a back deck with a hot tub. Maybe I can invite someone. I returned to Anchorage and started looking for a truck. Found a 1992 Ford Excursion. I brought it into perfect condition and registered it. I had a Colt M1E 911.45 pistol and wanted to carry it with me. What I didn't disclose is that I also own a .22 Colt pistol of the same design, as well as 2 shotguns and a Winchester Model 670, a .306 rifle. When I spoke to the deputy sheriff, he chuckled. "You are in Alaska, sir. You do not need a permit to carry a weapon, concealed or open. The main thing is don't go into a bar with him and don't have a criminal record. Here is my business card. Patrolman Walt Anderson is serving you, but you will likely see him rarely. If you have any questions, call." "Thank you, Officer O'Malley. I hope I don't have to." 2 years have passed. I'm heading home again from Anchorage. About 2/3 of the way into Girdwood, just south of the 3rd tidal wave viewing area, there is a railroad crossing leading to the Bird to Girdwood Parkway hiking trail. I crossed the tracks and rose to a height of 66 feet. I turned left and drove about 1/4 of a mile to an almost invisible exit to the right. Climbing higher, at 164 feet, I came to a small plateau. Turning right and continuing to climb, I braked sharply. A black Chevy Tahoe appeared directly in front of me. I turned off the engine and got out of the car. In the silence, I heard the faint cry of a child. He carefully walked around the Tahoe, touching the hood. It was still warm. They're not here for long. I moved forward quietly, unbuttoned my fur-lined leather jacket, and pulled my Colt .22 pistol from my shoulder holster. We shouldn't wait until the last moment, I thought. The temperature was about +7 degrees, not the most romantic time. I saw 2 men ahead. One was standing on the right, the other was kneeling on the left in front of the young woman. On the blankets nearby lay a blue bundle, from where the crying was coming. "Hurry up, Yuri, it's cold already. I'm doing what I can, comrade. Shut this child up." The man on the right moved towards the blue package. Damn, I thought, it's already the last minute. I moved the Colt to my side and took the safety off. Just as the guy leaned over and told the baby to be quiet, raising his hand as if to hit him, the girl moved and screamed. "No, please don't." The guy kneeling on the left had his pants and underwear pulled down to his ankles. I noticed that the girl's panties were also pulled down to her ankles. Her black skirt had ridden up to her waist, her blouse was torn, and her bra had been pulled up, exposing her breasts. I was about 8 feet away from them when I yelled, "Hey, bastards, this is private property. She belongs to me. What the hell are you doing here?" The guy on the right stopped halfway towards the baby, straightened up, and turned to me. "Get out of here, cop. This doesn't concern you." His hand went to the inside pocket of his jacket. I watched, holding my breath, as the muzzle of a Makarov pistol equipped with a silencer appeared from under my lapel. But I was already moving. Colt took a 2-handed grip and barked twice, sending 2 bullets into his head. I moved my aim to the left and froze for a split second, giving the second guy a chance to surrender. "Drop your weapon, bastard," I shouted. But he tried to get up, pulling up his pants with one hand and drawing his weapon with the other. He also received 2 bullets in the forehead and fell to the ground. I put the pistol to safety, put it in the holster, and pushed the Makarov pistol away with my foot. The baby did not like the noise. He screamed even louder. I hurried to him and picked him up in my arms. He immediately calmed down a little. I started talking to him, and he became even quieter. Now he just whimpered a little. Wow, I thought, I didn't know I was capable of this. Then the young girl screamed, "Please don't touch him. This is all I have." I turned to her and walked over. "Get your clothes in order." I leaned towards her as she tearfully pulled up her panties and lowered her skirt. I handed the baby to her, and she held him to her chest. I took off my jacket and threw it over the 2 of them. Then I walked up to the 2 thugs and searched their pockets. I took their wallets, money, cell phones, and Tahoe keys. I returned to the girl and squatted down in front of her. I involuntarily envied the baby who clung to her chest. Okay, I'm a bit of a pervert. Look at me, I told her. I want you to look into my eyes and not look down. We get up. She was short, so when she looked into my eyes, she would look up. I took her hands and helped her up. Now close your eyes and come with me. We will go where it is warm and safe. Where are we going? She asked. To my house. He's not far away, but I need to sort something out. This is weakly said. Her 4-inch heels weren't conducive to walking down the dirt road, but she kept her eyes closed and held the baby tightly to her. In the end, screw it, I thought, and picked her up. Damn, she's light. She was a little nervous, but the baby was already in the realm of dreams. We got to the passenger door of the big Ford, and I lowered it to the ground. Okay, open your eyes. I opened the front door, and the automatic step lowered. I took the baby from her and told her to sit inside. She sat down. I strapped her in with the lap belt without worrying about the 5-point harness. He returned the baby to her, opened the back door, took a rolled-up wool blanket from behind the seat, and wrapped it up between the two of them. He closed both doors, walked around the car, and got behind the wheel. She looked at me and asked, "You're a policeman, right?" "No, just a homeowner who happened to be at the right or wrong time, depending on how you look at it." I started the engine and started to back up. I turned on the switch on the panel, and 2 small spotlights on the rear roof came on. It's good that I practiced driving in reverse in the dark a couple of times. I returned to the country road and drove off a little to clear the passage. Okay, now I need to sort something out. I hesitated. "Do you know how to drive a car?" She looked at me offended. "I don't steal." I chuckled and said I didn't think so. "I'll leave the engine on. Don't touch anything. The stove will warm you." She looked at me and nodded. "I'll be back soon, I promise." I added a couple of steps to the heating, went out and closed the door. It was cold, and it was getting colder. I ran to the Tahoe, opened the driver's door, and opened the rear tailgate. At the bottom was a plastic bag containing several cans of soda. I poured them out and took the bag with me. I walked over to the blankets and knelt down. I put everything I had collected into a bag, opened the phones, and took out the batteries. I also put them in a plastic bag. I wrapped the first guy in one of the blankets and dragged him to the back of the Tahoe. I put it in the trunk of the car. He put the plastic bag on the front seat and went to repeat this with bastard no. 2. I got behind the wheel, closed the door, and started the engine. I started to pull out of the road and onto the path. I set it in motion and started moving north along the road. About halfway along the path, the main road forked to the right and continued climbing. The fork to the left continued downhill a bit, narrowing as it went. About 200 yards further on, there was a shallow crack just to the right of the road. I turned to the edge and stopped. He took a plastic bag, opened the door, shifted into low gear, and jumped out. The Tahoe started to move, hesitated, and then tipped over the edge and rolled down into the ravine. I walked to the edge and looked down. 20 feet down, he was barely visible. I ran back to the path and turned right towards my car. As I approached the car, I slowed down and pulled out my gun. It was quiet. The only sound is the engine running. I walked around the car and felt that everything was as I had left it. I went to the driver's door and opened it. 2 figures were motionless in the passenger seat. For a moment, I was afraid. Then I heard soft snoring and a little crying coming from the blue blanket. I relaxed and sat in the driver's seat. I buckled up and switched to a low gear, starting to move forward. She immediately woke up and turned to me. "Where are we going?" "To my house." "It's not far. You need to warm up and eat something, probably a shower too. And I think the baby needs a diaper changed." I smiled. "Why are you so kind to us? This is the right thing to do. And it makes me feel human again. When we get to my place, you can relax. You'll meet Joe and we." "Joe? Who is Joe?" I laughed and said, "My very good friend. He is quiet and protective. I think you'll like him, and I know he'll love you too." She kept looking at me as if I had turned into a monster. We walked up the hill, made a few easy turns, and finally reached the 164-foot plateau where my cottage stood. As we turned toward the house, I pressed the switch, turning on 2 large floodlights on the roof of the garage. Everything looked good, so I pressed the remote and the double garage doors opened. As we drove inside, the fluorescent ceiling lights turned on. I turned off the outside floodlights. We pulled in before the tennis ball hanging from the ceiling hit the hood. I pressed the remote again. The doors closed behind us. I turned off the engine and looked at the girl. "My name is Charles. Charles Carson. What is your name?" She looked at me warily. Then, "Svetlana Donchina. This is Mikhail," pointing to the child. She looked as if horror was 2 steps away, but she was too strong to give up. I like this girl, I thought, but not in that sense. I extended my hand, and she reluctantly shook it. "Let's go inside and warm up. I'm afraid of this, Joe. How can I trust him? How do I know you're not just using me like everyone else?" I stared. "Listen, it's going to be cold tonight. I offer you shelter, you and your son, so deal with it. A little tough, huh?" Her eyes widened, and she shook a little. I got out of the car, slammed the door, and walked around to the passenger side. I opened the door and unbuckled her seat belt. I took the blanket, folded it, and put it back in the back seat. I put my jacket back on and reached for Mikhail. Then I looked at her and said softly, "Now come on, let's go meet Joseph." I extended my hand and helped the dazed young girl out of the car. She followed me to the door of my house, carrying a diaper and her purse. I opened the door and turned to her. "I promise you, everything will be okay." I opened the door and there he was, a 147-pound German Shepherderish Setter Mix Shepherd Bear, a proud mountain of love. Svetlana looked at him with eyes like dishes. "Creature," she exhaled. "He doesn't think so, does he, boy?" He howled quietly and flowed across the floor. I took the child from Svetlana's arms. She was stunned. She reluctantly let go. I called him, "Joe, this is Mikhail. He's a friend. Say hello, boy." Again, "He is a dog." I laughed a little. "I can't fool you, can I?" She looked at me with an incredulous expression of shock. Joe walked up to the baby and sniffed him up and down, stopping on his back. He sniffed it, then licked it. I straightened up and returned the child to Svetlana. Then I called Joe. "Boy, this is Svetlana. She's a friend. Say hello, buddy." I turned to her and said, "Raise your hand, palm down." She looked at me and slowly complied. Joe walked over and sniffed her, then licked her hand clean. She lit up and looked at me. "This is a big dog." She laughed. "And he loves me. Marvelous," I said. I took the small plastic bag containing the dead men's belongings and then collected the diaper and closed the door. I led her into the living room and placed the plastic bag on my small desk. I took the diaper and placed it on the sofa, asking her to change his diaper. She laid him down and started cleaning him up. I went to the back door in the kitchen and turned on the outside spotlight. I didn't see any aliens or anything, so I opened the door and let Joe out. He ran around for a bit, then stopped and went about his business. He plowed up some dirt and then ran back to the house. He ran inside and went to look for his new friends. I locked the door, turned off the floodlight, and checked the electrical panel. It showed 96%. Great. We'll have enough for the night. I returned to the workbench and took out my weapon. I unloaded it and took it apart. I took out the 2 guys' wallets and emptied them. Just $325 in cash, several credit cards, and 2 driver's licenses. One is in the name of Yuri Dvobornik, the other is in the name of Vladimir Goshin. I walked over to the fireplace, nudged the smoldering coals, and threw a couple of pieces of wood on them. As the flames grew, I threw their wallets, credit cards, and IDs onto the fire. I walked over to the bookcase and grabbed my gun cleaning kit. The heater turned on and began circulating heat throughout the living area. By this time, Svetlana had finished with little Mickey, and he started eating again. Damn, the baby was hungry. I went into the hallway and took 2 large towels and a wash basin. Then I went into the bedroom and grabbed some old sweatpants, slacks, and a sweatshirt. I returned to the living room and handed them to Svetlana. Here you go. The bathroom is located between the two bedrooms on the right. You can sleep in any of them. I have a master bedroom because it's my home, but I think you two will be comfortable. She looked at me with a wary look. I laughed. Don't worry, both bedrooms have locks on the doors. Sorry, I don't have any fancy soaps or shampoos. You'll have to make do with Ivory soap and Head and Shoulders shampoo. She looked at me and thanked me. What about Mikhail? Where should I put it? Leave him right here on the couch. I promise we won't eat it. She wasn't sure. Joe will protect him. I promise. She looked at me, then stood up and stood on her tiptoes. She reached out to my cheek and kissed me. Thank you, she said quietly again. I was stunned and very embarrassed. Svetlana turned and went into the bathroom. Nice ass. But she locked the door. Wow, I thought. I sat down at my workbench. I finished disassembling. .22 and cleaned it and lubricated it. Then I cleaned and lubricated again, then reloaded. I went to the bookcase and pulled out a VHS tape about the American Civil War. I brought it to the workbench and opened it. Inside was my real .45 AKE Colt automatic. I changed it to a .22 LR and put the big Colt in the shoulder holster. Then he returned the box of videotapes to the shelf. I then took one of the phones and put the battery back in and turned it on. I checked recent calls and found nothing. Then I checked Yuri's contact list. The name Dmitry was notable and had several calls in history. I turned it off and took out the battery. Did the same with another phone and found the same results. I took out the battery and put both phones aside. Joe was curled up on the couch with Michael, his nose next to his paw. Then my guest came out of the bathroom, flushed like a rose and drying her long, luxurious blonde hair. I asked what she would like to eat, and the answer was, anything. I went to the kitchen. Svetlana followed me and sat down on one of the high kitchen chairs. I pulled out a couple of chicken breasts, some leftover mashed potatoes, and red cabbage. Her eyes lit up when she Saw Aunt Nellie's jar. It was obvious that she knew what pickled red cabbage was. We were soon devouring dinner while Joe devoured 2 cans of Alpo and nibbled on the remaining steak bone. After all, he is a growing dog. We washed the dishes and moved into the living room. I had several questions, so I began interrogating Svetlana while Misha was having dinner. Do you know who Dmitry is? Her face darkened. Yes, I know. Is he the boss? Yes. He tells everyone what to do and controls the girls. I'm afraid of him. It was he who sent me and my son to Juneau. I was popular because I looked very young, and when I became pregnant, I became even more popular. But after the baby was born, I became more expensive for him, so he sent me to his cousin in Juneau. But I don't think they were going to take me there at all. That's why you found us where you found us. She looked me straight in the eyes. You saved our lives. I began to feel anger boiling inside me at this guy. I blushed and said that she was probably right. Then she told her story. Her father was a fisherman in Vladivostok. His name was Mikhail. He drank a lot. One day he went out to sea on the fishing boat he was working on and never returned. Her mother could not provide for her and her older sister. Some man in town said he could help them get out. His mother agreed and slept with him in exchange for tickets. But when it was time to leave, the man told her mother that he only had room for 2. Her mother told them to go and promised that she would join them in a few weeks. We never saw her again. It seemed they only needed us for sexual favors. They took our passports and all documents and forced us to work soon after our arrival. Is your sister here too? Yes, her name is Anna. Anna Donchina. How old are you? I am 22 years old. Mikhail is only 4 weeks old. Bastard, I thought. Your sister, is she still alive? Yes, she still works for them in Anchorage. They operate from the Leningrad Club on the south side of the city. She is very popular, but she is already 3 months pregnant. I understood what she was getting at. This means that soon it will become unsuitable for their business, and faster than me because she is older, and then they will get rid of it. Her eyes drooped and filled with tears. Okay, I'm not heartless. Something needs to be done. But what? I started going over plans in my head. The first thing to do is to disappear Svetlana from their radar. No, don't kill, of course. Tomorrow. Fine. I want you to get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll sit down, make a list, and come up with a plan, okay? She lowered her eyes and began to take off her sweatshirt. Hey, that's not what I meant. She looked at me in confusion. What, are you gay? I almost choked. No, I'm not like that. You are very cute. But although I haven't had anyone for a long time, I won't take advantage of you. Now go to bed and take Misha with you. She was puzzled, but still took Mikhail and walked down the corridor, Joe following behind them. I turned everything off, took a shower myself, and then went to bed. As I fell asleep, I replayed in my mind everything I had done. Somewhere, it seems, I missed some detail, but I never remembered what it was. I woke up at 7 a.m. It was still dark outside, and it would remain that way for some time. I got dressed, put on the coffee and water for tea in case I needed it. I took a yellow pad and pencil and started making a list. But suddenly it seemed to pierce me, and I rushed to Svetlana's purse. A thought just occurred to me. I emptied her purse and went through all the contents: wallet, lipstick, powder, compact, eyeliner, mascara, feminine things. But there, at the bottom of the bag, lay a small cylinder. I looked at him and cursed. Damn! I unscrewed the top and shook out 2 tiny batteries about the size of hearing aids. Then he twisted the cylinder again. Then I grabbed her baby bag and emptied everything out. 3 spare diapers, baby wipes, a pair of bodysuits, and another top hat. I unscrewed the cap, dumped out the batteries, and screwed it back on. And then Svetlana entered the room, yawning and carrying Misha in her arms. Do you know what this is? I asked. Svetlana said that these were amulets from Dmitri. No, these are tracking devices. Thank goodness they have a limited range. Oh no, she said. I don't think they know where you are. Otherwise, your friends would already be here. But we'll figure it out anyway. Start making a list of what you and Mikhail need. Then we'll have breakfast, and then I want you to put on the clothes you wore yesterday. We'll take a photo. Come on, hurry up. She started making a list: diapers, wipes, jeans, boots, sneakers, shirts, and underwear. She indicated the sizes for everything. Meanwhile, I made breakfast: pancakes, bacon, and English muffins. I started washing the dishes while she got dressed. Then I went outside and picked up some dirt. I then got the tarp out of the garage. I laid out a tarp in the living room. Svetlana came out dressed the same as last night, down to the stockings and high heels. She looked at me and shuddered. Lie down on the tarp, I told her. She obeyed. I smeared dirt on her face, chest, and hands. Sorry about that. I lifted her skirt to her waist and pulled her underwear down to her ankles. Then I took ketchup and drew a thin line around her neck and a small circle on her forehead. Lie down and spread your arms like this. Now don't move and look straight ahead. I put the battery back into Yuri's phone and turned it on. I turned on the camera, focused, and took 3 pictures from different angles. I checked them, saved them, then turned off the camera and took the battery out again. I put the phone back in the bag and sealed it. Okay, go get yourself in order. She jumped up and ran into the bathroom, slamming and locking the door. I heard the sound of water coming from the shower. I collected the tarp and dumped it in the backyard. I took a plastic bag and a list. I waited until Svetlana came out of the bathroom. She returned looking slightly shocked. I went up to her, hugged her, and said that it was all over. I'm sorry for what we did. It was necessary. It's over now. We can handle it. I explained to her what I was going to do and also how she should behave at home alone while I was away. I want you to stay in the house and stay away from the windows. Let Joe roam freely around the house. If anyone shows up, go to that back room I showed you and lock the door. Why can't I go with you? The city center is still unsafe. Let me sort this out, and we'll discuss it when I get back. Please, she frowned, but eventually agreed. I hugged her again, turned to Joe and said, "Take care of them, buddy. Don't let anything bad happen, okay?" He barked 3 times and drooled. I think they were in good hands. Then I walked up to little Michael and took his tiny hand. "Take care of your mom, okay? Take care of her." Svetlana began to laugh and cry at the same time. I went out to the truck and started the engine. He put the plastic bag on the passenger seat and put the list in his pocket. While the engine was warming up, I pressed the remote control, and when the door opened, I drove out. He closed the door, put the car in gear, and began to descend the mountain. I stopped in the driveway and got out of the car. I had a sign that said, "Private property. No entrance for unauthorized people." I pulled it across the road and got back into the truck. I switched gears and headed to Anchorage. Svetlana still felt anxious. She'd never been alone with a big dog before, and Joe scared her a little. She walked over to the sofa and sat down. Joe looked at her, and it seemed that his muzzle drooped in a sad grimace. She looked at him, then patted the pillow. "Come here, smart girl." He happily jumped up to her, jumped on his lap, and began to lick her face. She laughed and hugged his huge head. She looked into his eyes and said, "You'll really protect us, won't you, Pi?" He seemed delighted with the unfamiliar Russian words, barked and pressed himself against her stomach. Mikhail began to whimper, and she took him in her arms. In the end, the 3 of them fell asleep on the sofa, and Svetlana had a contented smile on her face. Charlie drove into Anchorage, headed to Walmart, and parked. He took the list, grabbed a large cart, and was soon on his way back to his truck with everything he needed and more, and his wallet about $700 lighter. Chuck loaded the groceries, got into the cab, started the engine, and turned the heater on high. He reversed out, circled the building, and headed toward the trash cans. He took Yuri's mobile phone and charged the battery. He then found Dimitri's number and opened the messages function. He downloaded 3 photos and sent them to him. After waiting for confirmation, he turned off the phone and threw it in the trash. He then drove to the front of the building, next to the garden center, where the trash can was visible, and began to wait. 20 minutes later, Black Tahoe slowly pulled into the parking lot and headed toward the back of the building. The car drove about 50 feet past the trash can, stopped, and backed up. 2 guys who looked like typical thugs got out of the car and began to look around. After a short conversation, one of them climbed into the trash can. "He's seen enough." He shifted the gearbox to drive and slowly drove away. He got down onto the Seward Highway and stopped at a gas station. He threw Svetlana's second phone and purse into the trash, filled both fuel tanks, and checked the 2 5-liter cans on the trunk. He then went inside, bought 2 burner phones and a charger, paid for everything, and went home. Home, he thought. What a concept. 39 miles and 30 minutes later, he turned left off the highway and began to climb up the mountain. At the top of the hill, he stopped and checked to see if he was being followed. He waited 5 minutes. No one came closer or moved away. He put the car in gear and drove towards his driveway. He stopped, got out of the car, lowered the chain, and got back into the car, pulling into the driveway. He then refastened the chain and installed the spike strip. He drove up to the house, pressed the garage door button, and pulled the car inside. The door dropped and the engine stopped. He opened the car door, and as he was getting out, he heard the sound of glass breaking. He pulled out a gun and burst into the house. A woman's scream was heard, and he looked around the room. The big dog fell on his stomach and began to whine. Svetlana shouted, "No, stop." Chuck lowered the gun and saw Joe in a pose of repentance, Svetlana with a guilty expression on her face, and a broken lamp on the floor. All the adrenaline pumping left his blood, and he felt deflated. "And this was my grandmother's favorite lamp," I muttered out loud. I looked at Svetlana and grinned. She laughed and then burst into tears. Joe ran up to her and started licking her face. We were playing ball, and the little one jumped after him and knocked over the lamp, and I squealed, and, "Baby?" I asked again. She blushed. It means baby in Russian. I looked at this big guy and said, Well, now I know who your favorite is, right? I holstered my .45, picked up the broken $3 lamp, and tossed it in the trash. Svetlana walked around the room, embarrassedly putting everything in order. I stood there grinning like an idiot. Finally, I said, "Let's go get some groceries." We went to the garage and started moving our purchases into the house. 6 huge boxes of diapers amazed her. "I think he's already at his last," I said. She giggled. "Yes, you were just in time." Then her clothes and a high chair. "We can't let him sit on the floor, can we?" She was over the moon with her new clothes. She spun around, clutching her jeans and shirts. Finally, she stopped, ran up, and hugged me. "Thank you very much. How can I thank you?" She looked at me with her big blue eyes, with a playful smile on her lips. I nearly lost my composure. "Your presence here is already gratitude." "Are you sure you don't like men?" I turned her around and lightly spanked her tight ass. Joe immediately jumped up and barked twice. I looked at him and said, "She was bad. When you misbehave, you get punished, right?" She rubbed her seat and looked at me with a question in her eyes. "No one has ever rejected me." She hesitated. "Twice." I sighed and led Svetlana to the sofa. Mikhail began to walk, making it clear that he was hungry. "Feed him, and I will tell my story." She lifted the sweatshirt and her neat, cute breasts appeared. The bear immediately pressed himself to his right, and the world around him became ideal. I grinned and thought how I wished my world was that simple. Right after school, I joined the Air Force. Special Forces, 8 years in service. I've killed more people than I care to remember. Then I left and started working for my grandfather. He wanted to retire and leave the company. This is exactly what I was going for when I met Selena Chavez at one of the conferences. She blew me away, and I fell madly in love with her. No one else thought she was decent. Nobody liked her. But my stubbornness and second head prevailed over all decisions, and we got married. Error. She slept with her lover throughout our entire marriage, and I don't even know how long it lasted before that. I caught her, divorced her, and moved here. Then I saved this sweet Russian girl and her son from 2 bad guys, and my life changed. Who did you save? It's good that she's cute. I looked at her intently. Then, after a minute, he turned his gaze to Mikhail and then back to her. "Oh," she said and blushed. "Listen, you are sweet and attractive, but I don't have those feelings for you. It's not that I wouldn't want to, but you're just not my type. I treat you more like a little sister." She tilted her head, looked at me, and said, "I think I understand." Svetlana thought feverishly. She liked this man. She saw how he treated Mikhail and Joe. He respected her and did not try to take advantage of her position. Most of all, she saw that he was badly hurt by his first wife. He didn't seem to trust women. But I know who he needs, Anna, and I have to make him understand this and follow her. I need a plan. She began to think about how to persuade him to go after Anna. But Charles had already decided to rescue Anne because it was the right thing to do. He went over all the information he had in his mind and thought he could do it. The next morning after breakfast, we sat down at the kitchen table. I started with the most important thing. "Svetlana, I would like to help with your sister. To do this, I need to know everything you can tell about how everything works there." With these words, Svetlana jumped up, ran up to me, hugged and kissed me. Joe immediately pricked up his ears and ran over, wagging his tail. "Oh, thank you, thank you. I kept trying to figure out how to persuade you to help. Okay, here's what I need to know. Where do you meet women? How much does it cost? How do you convince them to go to the hotel with you? Do they have a schedule, days when they do not work? When do you think your sister will be there?" Svetlana thought for a moment and then began to speak. "The best time is around 6-7 p.m. on Thursday. This is before the evening crowds begin. Thursday is just the start of the weekend, and she will be there, offering herself to the highest bidder all night long. They will require payment in advance, either in cash or by credit card. If you use a credit card, they will try to steal your card information. They will also need your driver's license and will follow you to your hotel or home." I thought for a bit. Okay, today is Monday. I'll try to do this on Thursday. I'll rent a hotel room and use my old license. It shows the address where I lived when I first moved here. He doesn't point to this place. I'll leave the truck at the hotel. I'll rent a car and go to the club. I'll check in and prepare the room. Then I'll go to the club and try to convince your sister to come with me. I'll do everything I can. I might have to go back there again if she's not there. There's a chance she thinks you're dead. But we'll figure this out as we go. I've always liked this phrase. You will need to stay here. Everything is like yesterday. Don't let me down. We'll be back late if we go back Thursday night. I loaded numbers from burner phones onto each other, then put them on charge. The weather began to deteriorate. It became cold and cloudy. We relaxed until Thursday. I got ready. I pulled out a Colt .22 LR pistol and put it in a .45 holster. I put a small duffel bag in the truck and a couple bottles of water in the center console. I checked all the fluids in the car and inspected it. We were ready. My guests began to settle in and feel at home. She was good for my soul, and the baby brought pure joy. Joe was delighted. He forgot about me and focused on Svetlana and Mikhail. Sometimes I would accidentally call him Mikey. His mother immediately corrected me. Mikhail, his name is Mikhail, she said sternly. Oops, I finalized my plan and was confident that everything would work out. We sat down for a final conversation about the upcoming case. I explained to Svetlana that Anna might have thought that her sister was dead. If she saw these photographs, she might fear the worst. This might make it harder to convince her to trust me. Svetlana's face showed agony. I took her hands and promised that I would do my best. She was silent for a while and then said, Tell her that Daisy told you to trust. I looked at her. Daisy. That was her affectionate nickname for me, doll. She only used it when we were alone and happy. My nickname for her was Violetta, and she called Mikhail Misika. She will understand that you are special to me. She began to cry. I hugged her. I was going to fix it or die trying. On Thursday morning, I took a shower, got dressed, and went down to the kitchen. Svetlana stood with Mikhail in her arms. She sat him in his high chair, and we had breakfast. I took one of the burner phones and told her to keep an eye on the other one, but not use it. Then she hugged me and wished me luck. I started my big Ford, opened the garage, and drove out. After closing the door, I went downstairs, removed the spikes, and unhooked the chain. Then I secured everything again. I was ready. I got onto the Seward Highway and turned north toward Anchorage. 30 minutes later, I was in Anchorage. I headed to the Best Western Motel and checked in. I was given room 417. I took the elevator to the 4th floor and walked down the hallway to my room. I entered the room and looked around. I looked at my watch. Noon, lunchtime. I used the restroom and picked up the Do Not Disturb sign for the electronic door. Then he grabbed his duffel bag, looked around, and walked out the side door, heading to Budget Car Rental. I got into the Excursion and drove towards the airport. I found a budget rental and agreed on a Ford Taurus. The car could be picked up at the motel at 5 p.m. Then I went to the bank and withdrew $2,000 in $100 bills. Then I went to have lunch. I decided not to waste time on trifles. McDonald's. 2 Big Macs, medium fries, and a frozen Coke filled me up. After lunch, I decided to look into the Leningrad Club. I went to a shadier part of town and found a club. I drove past and quickly examined it. There was a large parking lot in front of the building, alleys on the sides, but essentially no backyard. Satisfied, I returned to the motel and parked to the side. The travel bag remained in the Excursion. I went to the side door, and sure enough, there was a sign there. Closed to entry from 22 o'clock to 7 o'clock. I tried the door, and it swung open. I walked to the elevators, went up to my floor, and entered my room. He looked at his watch again. 14:20. There was plenty of time left until evening. I collapsed on my bed, making a mental note to wake up at 4:30 p.m. My military training did not let me down, and I woke up at 16:25. I washed my face and went to get the rental car. Took the elevator down to the lobby, went to the front desk and got the car keys. Time to act. I went out and found a red Taurus and looked it over. No visible damage, tank 3/4 full, tires good. What else does a man need from a car? I started the engine and again headed towards the Leningrad Club. At 17:20, I went inside and looked around. The room was dark, and it took my eyes a few seconds to adjust. I counted about 12 tables and very few customers. I sat down at one of the tables. There were 5 girls sitting at the bar, a short black girl, a thin Asian girl, too skinny for my taste, 3 white-skinned ones, 2 blondes, and one with multicolored streaks in her hair. All obviously had fake breasts, and only the black girl and one of the blondes could be considered attractive. But among them, there was no one who was like Anna. A waitress approached me wearing short shorts and a t-shirt 3 sizes too small. "What will you order, buddy?" she asked. 7 and 7, I answered. She turned and walked towards the bar. A few minutes later, she returned with my drink. "Write it down," I said. "Yeah, of course. $20. Wow, this could be an expensive night, I thought. I took out 100 and handed it to her. When she, eyes wide, reached for the money, I pulled my hand away. "Just a minute. Is Anna here? Who's asking?" She narrowed her eyes. I looked at her. A friend recommended it, said she was worth it. She grinned. She should be here in 15 minutes. I smiled and thanked her. I slowly drank my drink, and about 12 minutes later, a tall brunette entered the room. The waitress walked up to her, said something, and pointed at me. The girl turned, looked at me, answered something to the waitress, and came up to my table. She looked me up and down and said, "They say you were looking for me, comrade. Will you buy the girl a drink?" I stood up and looked into her eyes. A coldness pierced me inside. There was no life in her eyes. She thinks they are gone, I told myself. I pulled up a chair and waved to the waitress. Anna sat down, and when the waitress came up, she said, "As usual for me, and one more for the gentleman." Everything to increase the score, I see. She was stunningly beautiful, cold and dead inside, but perfect on the outside. "So what's on your mind?" she asked. "I want to take you away for the night and help you forget all your troubles." She grinned and said that I didn't have enough money for that. "I don't need money," I answered. I took her hands in mine and looked straight into her eyes. "I have Svetlana and Mikhail." In an instant, she seemed to break. Her shoulders slumped and she squeezed my hands. "This is impossible. I saw her photo. They said she was dead. I saw her. Listen to me, Anna. They are both alive. I saved them from Yuri and Vladimir. Svetlana sent me to get you. But how can I trust you? Anna Donchina, Daisy, and Misha said that you should believe me. But you have to do whatever I say when I say it. Can you do this? Save me, please," she begged. I smiled. "First, I need to ransom you." I called the waitress. "How much does it cost to pick up a girl for the night, and what time should she be returned?" The waitress looked at Anna and said, $850. She must be returned by 9 a.m. tomorrow or another $850, no matter how late she is. I need your driver's license and credit card. I counted out $1,000 from my wad and handed it to her along with my driver's license. "Keep the change, and I need a check." She grinned and headed towards the cash register. When she returned, she handed me my driver's license and a check. Meanwhile, I noticed 2 healthy guys at the end of the bar who were watching me. I removed my license and put the check in my pocket. We got up, and I took the girl out of the bar. As we walked towards the exit, she whispered, "You just paid almost $1,000 for my ass, cowboy, so why don't you grab it?" I did just that. As I opened the door, I noticed 2 guys get up from their seats and follow us. In the parking lot, I directed her to the red Taurus. She got in, and I walked around the car to the driver's door. At that moment, they jumped out and began to look around. I put the key in the ignition, started the engine, and drove away. They hurried to, you guessed it, a black Tahoe. I turned onto the highway and headed toward the Best Western. We arrived safely at the motel and pulled into the parking lot. When I got out of the car, I threw the keys under the front seat mat. We walked inside, and I realized that no matter how sexy her 4-inch heels were, they weren't easy to walk in. The elevator was waiting for us, with its doors open. We entered, and I pressed the button for the 4th floor. When the doors were closing, our pursuers came inside. They saw us. While the elevator was going up, I grabbed her purse. "Take off your shoes," I said. She looked at me like I was crazy. "What?" I continued to rummage through her purse. "Take off your shoes." "Now!" "But my stockings," she moaned. I found what I was looking for and took out her talisman. "Did Dmitri give this to you?" "Yes, he gave one to each of his girls. He said it would keep us out of trouble." She took off her shoes, still looking at me like I was crazy. "Locator transmitter," I said. I returned her purse. The elevator beeped, the doors opened, and we exited, turning right. "Run to the end of the corridor and open the door to the staircase." While she was running, I ran to my room door and inserted the "Do Not Disturb" sign into the magnetic lock. I dropped the transmitter on the floor next to the door and then ran after it. We ducked down the flight of stairs just as the elevator doors opened. We started going down the stairs. "Listen to me carefully. We'll go out the door. Across the parking lot is a large, dark blue Ford. Go to him and sit in the front passenger seat. Wrap yourself in a heavy blanket and lower your head to the floor. I know it will be a little awkward, but it won't last long. Do you understand?" She said she realized just as we reached the 1st floor. "Let's go," I said. We went outside and headed to the car, followed by her quiet, "Oh, oh, oh." She climbed inside, wrapped herself in a blanket, and huddled on the floor. I got behind the wheel, put the key in the ignition, and put on my Seattle Mariners cap. Opening a hidden compartment under the instrument panel, I pulled out a pistol. We were ready. I took 2 deep breaths and waited. Soon a large Tahoe slowly pulled around the corner of the building. I crouched down in my seat as they drove by. They turned the corner of the motel. 1, 2, 3, I started the engine, put it in gear, and we drove out onto the street. I turned on my headlights and headed toward the Seward Highway. We were traveling at 62 miles per hour, fast enough not to arouse suspicion. "That's it. You can sit down." She stood up, buckled her seatbelt, rubbed her feet, and put her shoes back on, crossing her ankles. I took a bottle of water from the console and handed it to her. I took the second one for myself. Then I picked up the burner phone, pressed 2 on the speed dial, and called. Almost immediately, the answer came. "Hello." I handed the phone to Anna. "Svetlana?" "Anna," came the hysterical answer. Further conversation switched to Russian. I didn't understand a word, but I felt that the conversation somehow concerned me. We drove, and I kept my eyes on the road. The cruise control kept the speed steady, and cars passed us without incident. The conversation continued, alternating between bursts of laughter and tears, all in Russian. The movement was calm. I began to relax. But then I noticed headlights that were quickly approaching. The car overtook us and went ahead. It was a black Tahoe. 2 men. They were on a mission. The girls were in their own world. I invaded it. "Anna, tell Svetlana to take Mikhail and Joe and go into the back room immediately. Right now." "What's happened?" she asked anxiously. "I hope it's nothing, but I don't want to risk it." Anna talked to Svetlana in Russian, and I watched the Tahoe. They changed lanes to the left and accelerated. We were approaching a railroad crossing, and I slowed down even more. The truck jumped ahead and overtook me at 70 miles per hour. The driver changed lanes in front of me and continued driving. The Tahoe slowed down and turned left, heading toward the railroad crossing. They crossed the tracks and began to climb the slope toward the Bird to Gird Parkway. I got up to 80+ mph and passed the truck. There was an emergency turn ahead, and I braked sharply and swerved. After checking the road without stopping, I rushed back to the railway crossing. As I approached the crossing, I turned off my headlights. The full moon and lack of clouds made it almost daylight. I turned off the highway and carefully crossed the tracks. The Tahoe was already at the top of the trail. I slowed down. "Is Svetlana in the room?" I asked. "Yes, she led everyone inside and closed the door." "Who is this, Joe?" "He is her protection. Tell her to turn off her phone and not come out until I say so. Otherwise, I will kick her ass in a way that she will remember for a long time." Anna quickly said something to Svetlana in Russian and then hung up. "Now, who is Joe, and what makes you think he can protect my sister and nephew?" I grinned and continued to slowly drive up the trail. My thoughts were racing in 1,000 different directions. I needed to think. Joe loves her. That's enough. What did I miss? How did they find them? They reached the top and turned left. I watched the headlights as the Tahoe moved forward. They slowed in the driveway and then continued driving. Were they looking for something? They reached a fork and turned right. I slowed down as they stopped and then began to back up. They turned left and drove a little faster, and then it dawned on me. Certainly, they were following a GPS tracker or possibly the cars on Star System. I accelerated and drove up to my entrance, then stopped. I jumped out, unhooked the chains, and removed the spike strip. He returned, got into the car, and drove on. He ran out again, secured the chain, and scattered leaves and small branches along the tape. Returning to the car, I drove to the house. I couldn't see the other Tahoe's headlights, and I was sure they couldn't see mine. I pressed a button on the panel, and the double garage doors rose. I drove inside and closed the door. Turning off the engine, I motioned for Anna to follow me. He opened the door and shouted loudly, "Svetlana." Anna entered and looked around. "It's so beautiful here. Do you live here?" I smiled and said that we would have enough time to discuss everything. At that moment, Svetlana and Mikhail ran out of the back room. They rushed to Anna, hugged her, and all three burst into tears and laughed. I smiled and felt relieved we did it. "I'm sorry, ladies. I have one thing to do." At that moment, Joe flew into the room. Anna screamed, the baby started crying, and Joe went completely crazy. He jumped on Anna, knocking her down, and began licking her face. After all, she hugged his Svetlana, which means she is a friend. Svetlana laughed. "No, no, baby, good boy. Enough." But she couldn't stop laughing, trying to pull him away from her sister. I laughed, but then I got an idea. I grabbed my phone and dialed speed dial #2. "Alaska State Police, Girdwood Station, this is Officer Wilkes. How can I help?" "This is Charles Carson, Bird to Gird Parkway. Is Officer Anderson on scene?" "You mean Sergeant Walt Anderson? He was recently promoted. Congratulations to him." "I have a problem here. A big black Tahoe drives slowly up and down the highway, and I have a feeling they're up to no good. I have weapons, but I would like you to come and disperse them." "I'll contact the sergeant. He's on patrol now. He'll call you back, sir." I hung up the phone, put on a large pot of coffee, and went into the bedroom. He opened the gun safe, took out a Winchester Model 97 pump-action shotgun, and loaded it with tall brass base ammunition. Then I filled 2 thermoses with coffee, grabbed some paper cups, and walked out the door to the surprised looks of my guest and the approving woof from Joe. "No, boy, stay. Protect them." He barked twice and lay down on his stomach. It's good that he still understands English. "Where are you going?" Svetlana asked. "I'll just take the coffee to the police." "It's cold outside." "Are the police here? Did you call the police?" Anna lost her composure. Svetlana hugged her reassuringly. "It's okay, honey. Charles is one of the good guys. The cops probably love him too. I definitely love it." I smiled, blushed, and said I'd be back soon. I turned around and walked out the door and headed toward the parkway. By the time I got to the chain-linked entrance, real chaos was already going on there. 3 police Ford Explorers were parked on the road. One was blocking my entrance, and the other 2 were downstairs on the left turn. As it turned out, there was a 4th car and a coroner's van below where the Tahoe went off the cliff. Sergeant Walt Anderson put down his radio, climbed out of his patrol car in my driveway, and approached me. He knew me. "Hello, Serge," he said, smiling. I answered him with the same smile. Hello, Serge, and to you too. Congratulations. A little adrenaline, huh? He said, taking thermoses and cups from me. Sorry that it's only black, but it's hot and fresh. Thank you. Appreciate it, Chuck. Yes, we arrived, and then two suspicious guys came down to the wrecked Tahoe. Two bodies were found inside the car. Shots to the head, execution. He looked at me carefully. Are you still carrying that Colt around with you? I unbuttoned my jacket, took out a pistol, pulled out the magazine, chambered a cartridge, and handed it to him. He sniffed the weapon and examined it carefully. Wrong caliber. Looks like it was. The 22nd. Everything is fine. I didn't think you were involved. How's Joe the dog? I once invited him and his family to a barbecue about a month and a half ago, and his children fell in love with my dog. In order. The children haunted Irene and me for a couple of months until we got them the same dog. Although it would be more accurate to say the same. Her name is Princess Jeline from Anchorage. The kids call her Josie. I laughed. You should bring Josie over and let them get to know each other. He laughed in response. No, thank you. I'm not ready to talk about the birds and the bees with them. He returned the weapon to me. More guests will come to see you tomorrow morning. We'll need a tow truck to get the Tahoe out of the gorge. No problem, Walt. Leave the thermoses at the gate post when you're done. When I got home, there was already a real pajama party. The girls were sitting on the couch, eating ice cream and popcorn. Misha cooed on the blanket, and Joe took turns picking up fallen pieces of popcorn, licking ice cream bowls, and washing the baby's face. I am surprised that my dog still understands English because the girls chatted with him and the baby in Russian. Svetlana was wearing one of the cotton nightgowns that I bought her. Her sister looked fresh and rested. She was wearing my tracksuit, and she looked much better in it than Svetlana. Svetlana raised her head and asked if everything was okay. It's okay, I replied. Anna stood up and approached me. She hugged me and hugged me tightly. Thank you for everything. We owe you our lives. We haven't gotten out of the forest yet. Tomorrow we will need to do something. I'll need to take some photos. Svetlana will fill you in on the details. Sorry, but this is necessary to get you off their radar. Then we'll make a list and I'll go shopping. No, you won't go. You and your sister are simply unbearable. Anna began to protest, but Svetlana just giggled. He will take care of our safety. And won't let you say thank you more than that. I thought he liked men. Anna turned sharply and looked into my eyes. I blushed. Anna tilted her head to the side. I'm sure he's not into men, she muttered, and then turned to Svetlana. You're just not what he's looking for, are you, cowboy? She turned to me again. Oh, they're talking about me again. Joe looked at me with a welcome to my world expression. I shook my head and went to the refrigerator. I took out some balagna, rye bread, regular French's yellow mustard, a jar of pickles, and a small bottle of cola. Beer? Are you kidding? I need to keep my mind clear, otherwise they will eat me whole. Although, maybe they'll just eat me, I grinned. I returned to the living room, sat down at my desk, and began building my sandwich. The girls were in sister mode again, and I could have been in the next town over if they hadn't been glancing at me and giggling. I finished eating, put the dishes in the sink, and sat down in my leather chair. Two beautiful women, a baby, and a large dog that probably thought it was human. I'm damn lucky. In fact, thanks to them, I haven't thought about my shitty life in days. They lifted my spirit and gave me something worthwhile. The conversation died down, and Svetlana smiled maliciously. Anna looked at me as if I was the second coming. Joe was out of it all, enjoying the attention. I stood up and said, I think we should all get some sleep. Tomorrow will be a difficult day. I'll check all the alarms and locks. Svetlana pushed her sister towards me, and Anna, like a slave, came up to me, pulling off her sweatshirt. How can I thank you? She purred. Her hands slid to my chest. Her fingers grabbed my shirt, pulling me to her luscious lips. The kiss was unearthly, and her magnificent breasts were pressed against my body. Oh my God, What should I do now? Junior Charlie knew what to do, but what kind of man would he be if I took advantage of the situation? Normal, was my little friend's response, but I was a little embarrassed, and I was clearly not ready for it. I gently separated her hands and pulled away from her lips, moving her back a little. Svetlana giggled and said, I told him I thought he liked men. Anna smiled a meaningful smile and turned to her sister. Oh no, he's definitely not involved in men, she said with a smile, then looked at me again. Svetlana told me about your life. You paid for me, so you still have a check pending, Barry. You can cash it out at any time. With these words, she threw the sweatshirt over her shoulder and headed down the corridor. Stopping, she glanced over her shoulder. And I'm not sharing. She disappeared into the other guest bedroom and closed the door behind her. Didn't lock it. Svetlana stood up and took her son in her arms. Well, as they say in America, you are no longer on the market. She came up to me and kissed me on the cheek. Good night, Grandma. Sweet dreams. She turned around and, swaying her hips, walked into the other bedroom, closing the door behind her. Okay, at what point did I lose control? Did I even have one? I shook my head and looked at Joe. My friend looked up at me, full of condemnation, saying, Oh, you stupid man. I grinned. After making sure all the doors were locked, I went to the shower. Having finished with the water procedures, I turned off the light in the bedroom and wondered if I should lock my door. Smiling, I fell asleep. Morning came. I got out of bed at 6 in the morning. I got dressed, relieved myself, and headed to the kitchen. I was greeted by the smells and sounds of home life in the Russian style. Chatter and laughter filled the house with comfort. It's a pity that I didn't understand a word. When I entered, everyone looked up at me and their smiles were dazzling. Anna cooked, Joe ate, and Mikhail sucked his mother's breast with appetite, but with restraint. Good morning, ladies, I said. Svetlana smiled her innocent, almost childish smile. Joe did not interrupt his feast, continuing to devour Alpo. Anna smiled a smile that read breakfast. And that breakfast was me. Sit down to breakfast before it gets cold. She served me an omelet with cheese, onions and peppers, and small ham steaks. Looks like I'll have to restock my freezer soon. While plunging into food, I heard Svetlana's voice. I started making a list and explained to Anna what we needed to do with the photo and why. She agreed, and as soon as we have breakfast, we will do it. I have all its sizes and a list of necessary things. I also explained why we should stay here. She agrees and will abide by it. She fell silent as Anna sat down next to me, poured 2 glasses of coffee, made herself one, and asked how I liked my coffee. 5 spoons of sugar and cream. I don't want to use all the milk. She smiled. I think you're sweet enough already. I blushed, grinned, and said, Yes, but I still don't like coffee. She laughed. What a wonderful laugh, I thought. Svetlana continued. We are trying to develop a plan for the future. What are your thoughts? Anna ate happily, and I thought, well, we're safe here and practically offline. I need to go to Anchorage again for supplies. Then I think we should wait out the winter here and figure out what to do next. Oh yes, I still have to stop by Girdwood and talk to the midwife about Anne. After all, I don't know anything about having children. I giggled, imitating Butterfly McQueen. It felt like I threw a smoke bomb and a flashbang into the room at the same time. Svetlana turned pale and looked at Anna. Anna dropped her fork, as if Svetlana had renounced her. Joe turned around and barked. It seemed like I was the only one in the room completely unaware. What did I say? Anna started crying. Deep, heartbreaking sobs. Her head fell on the table, and she began to hit it with her forehead. Svetlana stood up and approached, but I beat her to it, hugging Anna. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just thinking about you and the baby. Svetlana intervened. She lost her baby a week ago. She was in her 2.5 month. Anna was inconsolable. I held her tightly to me and began to whisper something quietly. Svetlana stood and watched. Yes, I made the right choice, she thought to herself. Everything will be fine. We can handle it. Everything will be fine, honey. Yes, definitely the right choice. Svetlana was pleased with her decision. Anna gradually calmed down and stopped wetting my shirt with her tears. She sobbed and raised her head. Her beautiful brown eyes were red and swollen. Oh God, why? I held her in my arms for a long time. Finally, she sobbed and straightened up. Everything is fine. I just need to sleep. Don't lie. You need to get over it. What's happened? How did you lose your child? She began to sob again, her shoulders shaking as memories came flooding back. He found out about the child and beat me. He said I was too valuable to get rid of like he did with my sister. He beat me and beat me and beat me, and he didn't stop. And then he left me in my bedroom and locked the door. Other girls came and took care of me. Then he came and showed me her photos. He laughed and said that no one dared to disobey him, and then, "Sech," I told her, "never again. I promise. You understand? I'll get you and Svetlana out of here. I promise." This seasoned, tough girl looked at me, and it seemed to me that she died at that very moment. Svetlana was right. You are a good person. I don't deserve you. You don't have to do this. I'm going to decide what I deserve, and right now you're the best thing in the world. In my world. I got it. Crap. Where did this even come from? I was surprised. She started crying and rushed towards me, pressing her beautiful lips into mine. It's a good thing Mikhailo doesn't understand what's going on, because if he did, it would have been sex education 101 in 2 minutes if I hadn't stopped it. Listen, I said, our breakfast is cold now. What are we going to do? She looked at me like I was crazy. I couldn't resist and smiled. She started laughing. Sorry, I became serious. No more tears or apologies. Understood? Understood, cowboy, she blushed. Svetlana smiled and sniffed. Now I understand who the think tank is here. I took our plates, put them in the microwave, and heated them up. I returned them to the table and placed them in front of them. Now eat, I said sternly, trying not to grin too much. Yes, strawberry. Svetlana burst out laughing. I definitely need to learn Russian, otherwise I'm screwed. We finished breakfast and went into the living room. So, I assume Svetlana told you about the photographs. Yes, and she explained why this was necessary. I'm not crazy about it, but I understand the need. I can handle it. Fine. Then let's get this over with. She went into the bedroom to change clothes, and I again took out the tarp and some dirt from the yard. Not so much this time. I took the phone that Svetlana had last night and deleted all the numbers. Anna came out dressed as if for an execution or murder. She looked amazing. I told her to lie down on the tarp, extend her left arm, and hold her right arm close to her body. I put 2 spots of ketchup on her forehead, simulating bullet wounds, and a long mark on her throat. This one made it more smeared. I smeared dirt on her face and chest. I told her to turn her head to the left and keep her eyes open. I then hiked her dress up to her waist and pulled the top down to her breasts, revealing her gorgeous curves. Don't move, I warned her. I took 4 pictures and saved them. Then I turned off the phone. That's it, go wash yourself. She quickly disappeared into the bedroom and closed the door. Now what should I do? I have photos and I could send them to Dmitri, but that bastard deserved better. How can I get the police to pay attention to his affairs? I downloaded his number into my phone and asked Svetlana to write a message in Russian that Anna was removed and would no longer be a problem, according to his instructions. I then sent text and photos to his phone. I waited for delivery confirmation and turned off the phone. I took out the battery and memory card. We need to think about this. Anna came out, drying her hair, and we went through her list, checking the sizes and quantities. I added some canned goods and meat, folded the list, and put it in my pocket. I warned the girls not to go out and behave because I was running out of lamps. Anna looked puzzled, but Svetlana blushed and said she would explain later. I ruffled Joe's hair and tickled Michael, making him laugh. The girls hugged me, Svetlana in a sisterly way, and Anna in such a way that I blushed. I'll be back soon, I muttered. I left the house, got into the truck, and lifted the garage door. Thoughts about the phone and photographs were spinning in my head. As I was leaving the station, I noticed that there was no police car. I stopped the truck, got out, and removed the spikes and chain. The sun began to rise above the horizon. It looks like they're waiting for dawn so they can better see what they're doing, I thought. I got an idea. I turned right and drove north. I reached the fork where I got rid of the Tahoe the day before. There were still no police officers. I stopped, took the phone, and inserted the battery. I wiped the battery and case. I got out of the truck and headed towards the cliff. There was another truck there, there was police tape, but no one around. I walked up to the Tahoe and the driver's door was open. I stuck the phone between the seat and the console. We'll see what happens. I hope they already searched the car, I thought. I turned around, ran back to the Ford and got into it. He started the engine, backed up and turned around. I drove down the road to the Seward Highway. As I approached the right turn, I saw it a state police cruiser with its lights flashing. I slowed down and stopped when the officer got out of his car and shined a flashlight on me. I raised my hands and he smiled. "I'm armed, officer," I said. "You must be Mr. Carson. Sergeant Anderson said you live here." "Yes. Do you need my ID?" "No, sir. There is no other way out from here. You are exactly who we need." I smiled. I didn't realize it was a dead end. "Where is everyone?" I asked. "They'll be back in about an hour and a half. We are waiting for Dawn, tow truck and tractor." "Understood. I need to stop by for groceries and some things. I'll be back soon. Say hi to Sergeant Anderson. Would you like to bring you coffee or something else?" "No, my shift is almost over. Drive carefully, sir." He waved at me, and I continued along the trail toward the highway and turned toward Anchorage. 20 minutes later, I parked at Walmart, grabbed the list, and went inside. An hour and 45 minutes later, I walked out, my wallet much lighter. I loaded everything into the car and thought it was worth stopping by Leningrad. In the parking lot, there was a large Mercedes-Benz sedan in a reserved spot right at the entrance. I wonder whose car this is. I took a couple of pictures and saved them. This reconnaissance trip was enough, considering that I had frozen food in the car. I hurried home. I reached the exit and turned onto the lift road. At the intersection with Park Road, the officer waved at me and I turned left. I pulled into my driveway and saw a Ford F-550 tow truck with a flatbed. The second Tahoe was hitched to a Holmes 700 tow truck and the wrecked vehicle was on the bed of the truck. They were just preparing to leave. Sergeant Anderson stood nearby and waved at me. "Hey, Chuck, get up early, huh?" "Yes, I had some things to do. I wanted to finish my shopping early." "Anything new? What did they find out about those two guys last night?" "Well, I can't say much because we don't know much ourselves and, frankly, you're not supposed to know. But I can say that it looks like they were looking for the two people they shot." "Wow, should I be worried?" "No, they are in custody because they had two weapons with silencers. They fell silent and demanded a lawyer, so they would spend the next couple of nights in a cell until a lawyer was assigned to them. I don't think they even know you live here. Okay, if it's not difficult, keep me informed. I don't want to be caught off guard. Say hello to Irina and the children." "No problem, Sergeant. Have a good day." I drove into the garage and turned off the engine. Entering the house, I found my guests drinking tea and chatting happily, of course in Russian. Also, I noticed that Anna was wearing one of my dress shirts. She, of course, looked much better in it than I did, but that meant she was in my bedroom. The only thing that annoyed me was that I wasn't there with her. Oh well. Let's unload the groceries, guys. They jumped up and ran past me into the garage. We unloaded the car, put the purchases in their places, and sent Anna to her room to try on new clothes. I also bought new sneakers and snow boots for the girls, snowsuits for everyone, and a car seat for Michael, which was a real hit. We gathered in the living room again, and I asked what kind of car Dmitri drove. "A big white German car," Anna said. I took out my phone and showed her the photo. Yes, she said. It's her. I told them that I hadn't yet figured out a way to deal with Dmitri that wouldn't send me to jail, but I was working on it. Then I shared an idea that had been brewing in my head for some time. I have a friend who knows a guy, and I think I know how we can get to the continental United States. I need to call him and see if he can come and talk to us. What are you thinking about? Anna asked. I think you need new documents so you can fly to the continent. But we will never be able to board a flight anywhere, and we don't have money for all this, said Svetlana. Don't worry about money. This man is a good friend of mine, and maybe he can help us. I'll pay for his flight here, and we'll talk. Fine? At worst, it will just be a conversation. Anna looked at me and asked, Where did you get the money? I want to know. You have already spent a lot on us and never asked for anything in return. What do you want? I hesitated, thinking about what to say and how to express it. I decided it was best to tell the truth, and it was time for the whole truth. I sighed. You three are the best thing that happened to me in the last 3 years. And you, I said, looking straight into Anna's eyes, are the best. I'm afraid I've fallen in love with you. Yes, thought Svetlana. I knew it. I knew it, she exclaimed out loud. Anna and I looked at her like she was crazy. I have some money and I can afford it without any problems. As for the flight, we will charter a plane and will not worry about safety or anything else. Anna and Svetlana looked at each other, and Anna asked, How much money do you have? I grinned and replied, Enough. My grandfather took care of me after the divorce so that my ex-wife couldn't touch anything. I put some into an investment account and it grew nicely, so money is not a problem. But don't worry about it. I just enjoy doing the right thing. And you three are definitely the right thing. So, what do you say? Anna looked at me again with a look that showed uncertainty. Okay, we'll talk to your friend. But we need to decide if this is a good idea. Fair enough, I replied. I went out to the garage and called Angelo from my cell phone. On the 4th ring, he answered, Hello, who is this? Angelo, this is Charlie. Charlie Carson. How are you? Hey, Chuck, how are you? We haven't spoken for several years. What's new? Nothing special. How is your personal life? Personal life? What is this? There is complete calm on this front. And you? Oh, there is something. That's one of the reasons I'm calling. I need a service, but I don't feel comfortable talking about it over the phone. How about you come stay with me for a couple of weeks? Everything is at my expense. I could use some company and have some fun. Well, I could use a vacation, and I have a hell of a lot of unused days. Let me think, and I'll call you back. Thanks, buddy. See you later. I hung up and returned to my roommates. The girls listened to satellite radio and went about their business. Suddenly, Anna came up to me and sat on my lap. We need to go to the doctor. Alarm. What's happened? Are you feeling well? She laughed. Yes, we're fine. But situations change. We need to make sure we are healthy. Misha did not receive any vaccinations. It needs to be examined. Can you arrange this? I was a little worried, but I understood her concern. A year ago, I injured myself while chopping wood. The cut on his leg was deep and was bleeding heavily. I went to Girdwood and found Dr. Frank Johansson. He was an elderly Vietnam veteran, and his wife worked as a nurse in his office. They had a young assistant, Charlotte, who was preparing to take over the practice when he retired. The doctor did a lot of charity work, helping local residents. I liked it. The wound looked worse than it actually was. He cleaned her up, put in 6 stitches, and then we chatted for a bit. The clinic was almost empty, and he had time. I paid the bill and later sent a $10,000 donation to the clinic through my financial representative in Seattle. So I had an ace up my sleeve. I called Dr. Johansson and made an appointment for the next morning at 10 o'clock. The girls were happy, and we had dinner calmly and went to bed. I didn't know that by situations Anna meant her feelings for me. She wanted to be with me and wanted to make sure everything was clean. She loved me and wanted more than just a fleeting connection. The next morning, we drove to Girdwood to the clinic on Toadstool Drive. We checked in and Marge, his wife and nurse, said I would have to wait while they checked everyone out. 2 hours later, everyone came out, rubbing their shoulders and smiling, and Svetlana gave Mikhail a lollipop. "Well, let's go," I asked. Dr. Johansson poked his head out of the office. "Chuck, come in for a minute." The girls looked worried. I told them to take a walk, and I went to get the doctor. "I'll get straight to the point, son," he began. I tensed up. "Chuck, I respect you. My wife adores you. And it may not be my business, but I will make it my business. Is something wrong? Is everyone healthy?" "Everything is fine. The boy is healthy and has received his first vaccinations. The girls are also healthy, but the results of some tests will come in a week. Do you know what they were doing?" "Right to the point." I sighed. "I know what they were doing, but I got them out of it. Now they are different." The doctor nodded and sighed. "Chuck, the eldest of them is crazy about you. She wanted to prove it, but she wanted to make sure everything was okay. How do you feel about her?" "She is the best thing that happened to me. I did everything to save them, and I will give my life to protect her." "So I guess you like her," he chuckled. "I just wanted to make sure you didn't lose your head. I got them, birth control pills. My wife insisted. She said that if you decide to play pranks, then at least do it carefully. Take them home and rest until I get the test results." "Good luck. I think you will need it." I walked out to find the girls coming back from the grocery store with ice cream in their hands. We headed back to the truck, loaded up, and headed home. 10 minutes later, they were fast asleep. I started making fun of little Mikey. "Hey, if his mom is asleep, she can't yell at me for what I call her son." We got to the house and pulled into the driveway. No guests as far as I could see. I pressed the button and the garage door rose. Inside stood mine Jeep Wrangler and a snowmobile. I drove inside and closed the door. The girls woke up, stretched and yawned, and got out of the car. We went into the house, and they started complaining that they only had ice cream for lunch. I said I was sorry, but I needed to talk to the doctor. "How about lasagna for dinner?" They poured their lips and said in unison, "We want to eat now." But at the same time, their eyes shone with childish spontaneity and fun. "Hey, when I was a kid, I would kill to have ice cream for lunch." This was followed by a long dialogue in Russian, accompanied by laughter and smiles. "Typical boy," said Svetlana. There was laughter again. We heated up the lasagna and sat down at the table. Suddenly, I grabbed Anna's right hand with my left and Svetlana's left hand with my right. "Let's say a prayer," I suggested. The girls were surprised. We had eaten together before, but we had never prayed before eating. They looked at each other and then bowed their heads. I started. "Bless us, Lord, for this food and for these women and children. Thank you for this gift. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen." But Anna did not let go of my hand. "And thank you, Holy Mother, for sending us this man to save us. Keep him safe and reward him. Amen." The girls smiled at me, I blushed, and we started eating dinner. After dinner, the girls cleared the table and insisted on doing the dishes. "Go and rest, baby. We will do everything ourselves." I fed Joe and checked the electrical panel. 97%. Everything is fine. Joe finished eating, and I let him go outside to relieve himself. He took the beer and headed into the living room. The girls came in with glasses of wine and a hungry baby. While Svetlana was feeding the baby, Anna sat down opposite me and asked, "Do you play chess?" "Do I play chess?" "In high school, I finished second in the state championship." "Do I play chess?" "Well, I haven't played for a long time, but I used to know how to play a little." "Can you do it?" She noticed my Staunton chess set by the window. "Oh, I played a little as a child. My father taught me." Her gaze darkened a little. "Shall we play a game or two?" I suggested. "Yes, I would like to, if you don't mind." I thought, I'll be gentle with her, give her a little head start. She defeated me in 23 moves. Then she won again, and again. The fourth game lasted almost 2 hours. It ended with me having a rook and 2 pawns, tilting my king. Anna smiled shyly, and Svetlana laughed until she cried. "Okay, miss, next time I'll play with you," I said, looking at Svetlana. "Oh, you shouldn't do that," Anna replied. "Why?" I asked. "She plays better than me." I urgently needed another beer. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, Angelo called. "Hello, Chuck. How are you?" he said in a fake Brooklyn accent. I grinned and said, "Not bad, Angie. How are you? I can survive in a crowd with a push. Is my invitation still valid?" "Certainly. Did you manage to get the weekend?" "Yes, 2 weeks, starting this Saturday. Is this right for you?" "No problem. I'll leave my ticket at the Alaska Airlines counter. I'll text you the time." "I really appreciate it, Angie." "Anytime. So what are you doing out there in the great frozen north?" "Nothing special. I'm sitting with 2 attractive young women, playing chess and having a few drinks," I chuckled. There was a heavy pause on the other end of the line. After. No, seriously, what are you doing?" "You heard everything. When you arrive, you will meet the ladies. If, of course, you're a good boy." Now he was laughing. "Okay, if you don't want to talk, don't talk. Call when you have flight details." He hung up. I closed the phone and looked at the girls. He doesn't believe that I'm sitting with 2 beautiful women, drinking and playing chess. I smiled and chuckled again. Oh, I'm in for a great time. It was Tuesday evening, so we relaxed and listened to music while Svetlana fed Mikhail. I checked all the doors and electrical panels. 96%. Everything is fine. I went to the girls and said that I was going to bed. They got up, kissed me goodnight, and I went to my room. The rest of the week flew by quickly. I called and made a reservation for Angelo, arranging for him to pick him up at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning in Seattle. We walked and Joe was excited about the physical activity. The girls loved being outside, despite the temperature being around plus 4 degrees C. We had a barbecue a couple of times and the girls took advantage of the hot tub, a couple of times while wearing cut-off jeans and t-shirts. It was nice to watch. We took the Girdwood excursion to get our oil changed and explore the area a bit. This took about an hour, and while the local mechanic serviced my truck, we had a barbecue lunch. That way I didn't have to listen to the whining about how there was only ice cream in the house. We walked around a bit, promising the girls that we would soon go to Anchorage. Returning home, I found out that Svetlana plays chess better than Anna. We had a late breakfast on Saturday, and I left for the Anchorage airport around 2 p.m. The flight time from Seattle is just over 3 hours, so I won't have to wait long. I parked in the long-term parking lot and looked around carefully. You have to be careful with these sneaky Tahoes, they sneak up unnoticed. I didn't notice anything suspicious and decided that everything was fine. Around 3 p.m., the flight from Seattle landed and taxied to the gate. Passengers began to exit the gangway, and I began to look for Angelo. When I saw him, I waved my hand. He noticed me and smiled. We approached each other and exchanged friendly hugs. "I was hoping to see one of those cardboard signs with my name that drivers hold," he chuckled. "Oh, I didn't know army guys could read." I laughed it off. He laughed. "Go straight to the attack, right? Just like the good old days." He laughed, and we headed to the baggage belt. Taking his suitcase, we went to the car. Approaching the excursion, Angelo said, "Wow, is this compensation for something?" I grinned. "If you get stuck here in the snow, you will appreciate such a colossus. At least that's what the ladies say," I answered with a serious look. Angelo laughed and asked, "So your chess partners go home before the snow falls? Actually, that's why I invited you to come." On the way home, I told him the whole story and asked if he could get what we needed. "I think I can arrange it, but it might be expensive." "Are these girls worth it?" "Absolutely." When we arrived at the house, he was silent for some time, clearly lost in his thoughts. I got out, unhooked the chain, and removed the spikes. Returned to the car. "Wow, you really care about safety here." We drove down the driveway, and the road got a little rough. "And you didn't tell me that we would live in the wilderness." I laughed. "Come on, the neighbors will compensate for this." The look he gave me was priceless. We pulled up to the house, and I pressed the garage door button. When the door rose, we went inside. "I take it back," Angelo said as the door closed. "This place is simply mind-blowing." I smiled. "Let's go meet your potential clients." He became serious, took his bags, and we entered the house. Anna and Joe met us. Well, Anna stood up and Joe jumped up and jumped on me. "Hello, buddy. What's new? Where's Mom?" I introduced Anna to Angelo. He shook her hand and said, "Great." He knelt down to pet Joe and nodded his approval. Then the toilet in their bathroom was flushed. Svetlana entered the living room with Mikhail in her arms. Angelo froze, his mouth opened slightly, and he even stuttered a little. Svetlana also looked slightly stunned. Well, I thought, this is unexpected. Mikhail attracted his mother's attention by pulling her t-shirt. Svetlana perked up. "Oh, sorry. He wants to eat." And she blushed. "Incredible. And this is Svetlana," I said to Angelo. "Ah, hello," he finally said. Joe walked up to Angelo and sniffed his hand. He barked, drooled on the floor, and sank heavily onto his hind legs. Svetlana was sitting on the sofa and pulling up a blanket to cover nursing Michael. All these days her breasts are out, and suddenly she decided to be shy. Angelo walked over to the sofa and sat down, pointing at the baby. "What's the name of this little guy?" "Mikhail," Svetlana answered, blushing again. He tickled the baby's finger and said, "Hello, Mikey. Oh, here it begins." Svetlana giggled and said, "He seems to like you. What the hell?" And she's still giggling. They chatted as if there was no one else in the room. Anna came up to me, put her hand on my shoulder, and whispered in my ear, "Let's go to the kitchen, cowboy." I obediently followed her. She went to the refrigerator, poured herself a glass of white wine, pulled out a beer for me, and walked over to my puzzled self. "I think, as Svetlana told you a few nights ago, Angelo is no longer on the market." She smiled and kissed me. I looked at her and said, "What the hell just happened?" She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I think the Donchin sisters fell in love." I know that I fell in love with myself. Is this so hard to believe? I looked at her and thought, what the hell, the debt is beautiful. I pulled her towards me and kissed her with 3.5 years of pent-up desire. We pulled away from each other and she was breathing heavily. "Oh my God. You too?" "Guilty," I said, smiling. She staggered. I wasn't sure you felt that way." "I just hoped you felt it," I replied. Now she was blushing like a schoolgirl. "So what should we do?" I asked. She looked at me. "I think we'll wait for the doctor's conclusion, and then we'll legalize. Whatever it is. How do you like this plan? It suits me." I kissed her again, more tenderly this time. We hugged each other and looked into each other's eyes. "I think we should go back to the living room and make sure they behave themselves," Anna said. We returned to the living room to find them laughing and whispering on the couch. They didn't even notice us. I cleared my throat. Aren't you guys hungry?" "Oh, yeah, we can eat," Angelo said. "Yes," said Svetlana. "I'm hungry too." "How about my famous frozen lasagna?" I suggested. Anna rolled her eyes and looked at me. They both answered almost simultaneously. "Oh yes, that sounds great." I looked at Anna and rolled my eyes too. I went to the kitchen, took out the lasagna, and turned on the oven. Finally, I put the dish in the oven and set the timer. I then returned to the living room to continue my caretaker duties. Anna was sitting in my chair, so I sat down on the edge of the fireplace. The other two were in their own world, chatting and laughing as if no one else was there. I tried to start a conversation. "How about the Seahawks?" Nothing. They didn't even stop, continuing to whisper and laugh. By this time, Angelo was already holding Michael in his arms and talking to him, making the baby laugh and giggle. Svetlana looked at him with awe and hung on his every word. The oven rang and I announced dinner was ready 3 times. The youth finally woke up and, laughing and chatting, went to the table. We sat down at the table, and Mikhail found himself between Angelo and Svetlana. After dinner, we should rest. Tomorrow, we have to discuss our plan and prepare. How about sleeping places? Asked Angelo. I'll sleep with Svetlana, and Angelo can take my bed, Anna said. Or you could sleep with me in my bed, I thought. Anna looked at me as if she read my thoughts. She shook her head with a sly smile on her face. Svetlana, lowering her eyes in embarrassment, interjected. He could sleep in my bed. Sleep, baby, sleep, Anna said sternly. Svetlana pouted and looked upset. I laughed looking at the three of them. Angie, take Anna's bed and behave yourself. You're boring, Yagodka, Svetlana said with an offended look. We finished dinner and Angelo wished Svetlana and Mikhail good night. The girls went into their bedroom and he turned to me and said, Thank you, Chuck. She is the most amazing woman I have ever met. I'm terribly scared. If it makes you feel better, know that she's head over heels in love with you. How did you understand this? When we first met, I accidentally named the child Mikey, and this was after I saved her life. And you just said hello, and she's already offering you children and changing the baby's name. I didn't even notice. I chuckled. Welcome to the club. The girls told me that we were both unavailable. He laughed and stared at me. Then he said, I think we could both find something worse. I was inclined to agree with him. After wishing him good night, I went to the shower. The next morning, I was awakened by the smell of bacon, eggs, and ham steaks. Angelo came out of the bedroom just as I was pouring coffee, and the girls were already busy. Anna cooked everything that was in the refrigerator, and Svetlana fed Mikhail. Angie came up and kissed Svetlana on the forehead. Good morning, he muttered. He then tickled Mikey's cheek. Hello, Mike. Svetlana smiled and kissed the back of his hand. Breakfast was great, and we cleared the table, washed the dishes, and made more coffee together. Taking a couple of yellow notepads and pencils, we sat down for a military council. Okay, I know a guy who knows another guy. This is what I understand you need, Angelo began. Entirely new ID cards for all of you, including passports, social cards, driver's licenses, except for Mikey, of course, birth certificates, voter cards, a credit card or two, don't use them, and maybe library cards. Have I forgotten anything? Voter cards, library cards, I asked. It's the little things that people see that make them think you're real. You're just trying to get into the States, and all this will help. Now we need information about you. Height, weight, age, and what names you will use. We took measurements, the girls estimated their weight, and announced their ages. With Mikhail, everything was simple. Height, weight, and gender were obvious. The girls gave their details, and we put together some pretty decent profiles for everyone. Now let's move on to names. Anna. What about Anne? Anne Donish. Almost like my real name. I could be Suzanne Donesh, her sister. And the baby? Angelo asked. Svetlana blushed and said quietly, Mikhail is a good name. Mikhail Cardona, if you don't mind. Wow, I thought. It's picking up steam. I looked at Angelo. It's an honor for me, he said. But what happens when we get to Seattle and it's all over? And what? Svetlana asked, looking into his eyes. Anna was right, he really is unavailable. They sat and looked into each other's eyes. Hello? Hello? Earth calls Angelo. Earth calls Svetlana. Welcome, please. They were in another world. So Anna and I discussed world peace, the state of the economy, the Chinese embargo, and everything that came to mind. They finally came out of their haze, blushing, and returned to their conversation. Angelo said, Okay, we need photographs. Good, but not too good. After all, these are supposedly state documents. He took out his phone and started looking for a neutral background. I'll bring the tent. It's khaki green, and we can hang it on the wall. I went to the garage and brought the folded awning. We went to the front wall of the living room, nailed it in place, and pulled it up. The girls sat down in front of the tent, and Angelo took 3 photos of each. He looked at them and decided that at least 2 photos of each girl would do. He'll print them in Seattle and let the counterfeiter choose. He also took a photo of my driver's license in case a blank template was needed. We removed the awning and went to the kitchen for lunch. Angelo started the conversation. So what happened to Anna's pregnancy? I know it might hurt, but if I'm part of the family now, I want to help. He looked at Anna and me with a gaze that did not tolerate prevarication. Anna lowered her eyes and tears rolled from her eyes. She told him everything. His expression hardened and he turned his gaze to me. We have to fix this. I told him about the photos and that I had sent them to Dmitri. He sat, thinking, and I saw the gears working in his head, and his gaze became harder and harder. Finally, he said, "Give me your satellite phone." I handed him the phone, and he walked out onto the back deck into the cold. About 10 minutes later, he returned and gave me the phone. I think I got everything settled. Let's see. He didn't explain anything. We moved into the living room, and I turned on the music. I settled into my chair, and she sat on my lap. The lovers settled down on the sofa and again plunged into their world. What do you think they are talking about, my dear? I think they are serious. I looked at this goddess and thought, how the hell did she beat me at chess? I looked into her beautiful eyes and said, "Do." She hit me on the shoulder. I continued, "I think you're looking at your future brother-in-law." She giggled and looked at me. "And yours too." Yes, I'm still an idiot. Perhaps that is why Anna beat me at chess. I kissed my companion and hugged her. Anna purred. "I knew you didn't like men." We sat around and watched as Angelo and Svetlana were in their own world, completely ignoring everyone else. We had dinner and then drank some alcohol. At least Anna and I chatted for a while, and these two just made eyes at each other. At about 10 o'clock in the evening, we decided it was time to go to bed. 35 minutes later, Angelo and Svetlana also ended up for the evening. We all wished each other good night and went to our bedrooms. The next morning, we met for breakfast. I received a kiss from Anna and saw her playfully wiggle her beautiful ass. I think Angelo and Svetlana simply shook hands and exchanged greetings. The breakfast was excellent. Anna is a great cook. We washed the dishes and went to the living room with coffee and tea. Little Mikhail was hungry again, so his mother fed him while we listened to music, and I was forced to play chess again. Time passed. I very rarely watch TV, only sometimes football or baseball games. The Seahawks have been pretty good this season, but the Mariners, not so much. But I often watched videos, war films, documentary series, and almost never watched sentimental films. Well, sue me. I did have one such snotty film, Sleepless in Seattle. I'm a guy from Seattle, so I fell for the name. It turned out in vain. I watched it once, but it turned out that it was already twice too much. But the girls didn't really like John Wayne, and they didn't like science fiction either, so we watched Sleepless in Seattle. The day went on as usual, and the girls made some popcorn. A few minutes into the second viewing, the phone rang. I answered, and it was Dr. Johansson. "How are you, Chuck?" he asked. "Quite normal, Doc." "What's new?" I received the test results. Everyone is healthy. Svetlana has mild anorexia, but I think everything will get better with time. Take care of them, son, and behave well yourself. Then he muttered, as if it would happen. "Thank you, Doc. I'm in your debt." I hung up and looked at everyone. It was the doctor. He said the results were normal. Everyone became quiet. "Everything is fine. The doctor told us to behave ourselves." Whatever that means, I looked at Anna and grinned. She looked at me, and the temperature in the room clearly rose. Svetlana looked at Anna, then at Angelo. "Well," she said, "we can give Anna her bed today," she said with a languid look. Poor Angelo was confused. "Well, if you think it's a good idea, and if Chuck doesn't mind," he looked at me. "Well, you're not going to sleep with me, so asal," I answered. And then smiles and sly grins appeared on everyone's faces. The girls stood up as if on command, and Svetlana announced with a yawn that it was time to sleep. Angelo jumped up, took little Mikey in his arms, and quickly headed to Svetlana's bedroom. Svetlana looked at me, then at her sister, and said, "Good night, Violet." Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And she rushed down the corridor to her room, slamming the door shut. I looked at Anna and realized the decisive moment has come. Do you want to play chess? I asked. She laughed her charming laugh and said, How about dress chess? What is this, undress chess? I asked. Oh. For every game you win, I take one thing off of me. Here, I'll even give you a head start. She grabbed the bottom edge of the t-shirt and pulled it over her head. Then she unclasped her simple white cotton bra from behind, and it fell off, revealing those delicious breasts. After which she unbuttoned her jeans and, turning slightly, pulled them off, simultaneously taking off her sneakers. And there she stood, wearing nothing but a pair of cute white cotton panties. She knew how to make even simple white lingerie sexy. She stood with her hands on her hips and watched my stunned expression. I think in 5 games I'll make you stay naked, even if you have a tank top under your t-shirt, she grinned. Fuck chess, I thought. I got up from my chair and hugged this woman who was teasing me. I have a better idea, I whispered. Well done. Let's go to bed, she purred. We went into my bedroom and I closed the door and locked it. Are you afraid that someone will come in? She asked. I grinned. I don't want the children to come in and see us. I intend to get down to business and cash out my deferred payback. She smiled in such a way that it became clear that I was in for a pleasant night. She walked towards me, slowly knelt down and slid her fingers to my waistband. Her movements were confident, but at the same time careful, as if she was enjoying every moment. I held my breath, feeling the tension growing with every gesture she made. Oh, she said, looking up at me in surprise. Sorry if this isn't what you expected. I tried to laugh it off, but she just grinned, her eyes sparkling with a cheerful sparkle. Who is disappointed here? Her voice was soft, but there was playfulness in it. It seems like I have a lot of work ahead of me. She ran her hand over my skin, causing me to involuntarily exhale. Her every touch seemed electrified, and an almost palpable tension hung between us. You know, your wife clearly didn't appreciate what she had, she whispered, her smile warm but tinged with challenge. The world around her narrowed to her voice and touch. I closed my eyes, letting the moment swallow me whole. She knew how to hold attention, how to create an atmosphere that would give you goosebumps. And at that moment, nothing else mattered. She stopped for a moment, squeezing it, and looked at me. Sorry, I like it, and I like doing it for you. Please don't think less of me. Tears welled up in her eyes. Either she was playing great, or she really thought she had done something bad. I pulled her up so she stood up and hugged her tightly. If you ever stop doing this for me, then I will think that you don't love me anymore. She burst into tears on my chest. I pulled off my t-shirt and shook off my jeans, taking off my sneakers and underwear at the same time. Then I picked her up and carried her to the bed. She was a little heavier than Svetlana, but I liked it. She smiled and said, You threw your clothes all over the room. Our room, I said. Anna lit up and threw a kiss at me that threatened to strangle me. I lay down next to her, feeling the warmth of her body and listening to her ragged breathing. She closed her eyes, and a shadow of pleasure ran across her face. My movements were soft and careful, and every gesture caused her to tremble and smile slightly. The atmosphere around us was filled with intimacy and trust. Muffled sounds could be heard in the distance, as if someone was having fun behind the wall. They disappeared into the twilight of the room without disturbing our harmony. She pressed herself even closer to me, and time seemed to slow down. We just enjoyed the moment, taking our time and not thinking about anything else. It was a silence full of meaning, and every glance spoke more than 1,000 words. Well, maybe not so faint or muffled. I hoped it wouldn't wake the baby. My lover brought me back to business. Hey, cowboy, we need to get down to business, she whispered in a low, husky voice. Her gaze was piercing, and her breathing was uneven. The atmosphere in the room was heating up every second. I carefully ran my hand along her thigh, feeling how her body responded to my every movement. She arched towards my touch, her eyes closed and her lips parted in a silent sigh. I don't often get as emotional as Svetlana, but when I do, it's hard for me to control myself, she muttered, her voice trembling with tension. I continued my gentle exploration of her body, causing her to tremble and lightly moan. She bit her lip, her fingers curling into the sheets. There was tension in the air, and her emotions seemed to be overwhelming her. You know, she whispered after a long pause, not all men are capable of being so sensitive. Most people don't understand how important this is. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling in the dimness of the room. We lost ourselves in this moment, allowing it to last forever. But you're not a prostitute anymore, right? She looked at me with wide eyes. Then who am I? She sobbed. You are the woman I love and am going to marry, and she will be the mother of my children. The woman I was supposed to meet and marry 7 years ago. I ran my hand along her back, feeling the trembling running through her body. Her breathing became ragged and her fingers clenched the sheets. She looked up at me with a mixture of trust and expectation. I thought you weren't the type to lose your temper that easily, I said with a soft smile. It seems like I'm discovering something new in myself with you, she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. I let my lips glide over her skin, leaving light kisses as my fingers carefully made their way along the line of her thigh. Her body responded to every touch, as if following an invisible rhythm. We seemed to dissolve into each other, forgetting about everything that was around. There was silence in the room, broken only by our breathing and the crackling of the fire in the fireplace. Her eyes sparkled in the darkness, and the smile on her face was both gentle and confident. Now, she whispered, snuggling closer to me. I want this moment to last forever. I leaned down to kiss her, and time ceased to exist for us. Please, she whispered, her voice soft but decisive. I nodded and leaned towards her, our lips merged in a kiss full of tenderness and trust. The movements were careful, filled with patience and care. She closed her eyes, trusting me with every moment of this moment. Everything is fine? I asked, holding my breath. She nodded, her lips curling into a slight smile again. Her hands lay on my shoulders, and she slightly reached out to me, accepting everything that was happening with complete confidence. Eventually, our eyes met again. She looked tired but happy, her eyes glowing with a soft light. It was incredible, she whispered. I smiled, hugging her and holding her close. At that moment, everything was right, and the whole world seemed to dissolve, leaving only the two of us in the silence and comfort of this moment. We lay there in post-sexual bliss and fell asleep. I woke up about an hour and a half later. The room was shrouded in twilight, and the soft light of the morning sun barely broke through the thick curtains. Anna was sleeping peacefully next to me, curled up in a ball. Her breathing was even and calm, and there was a slight smile on her face, as if she was dreaming of something pleasant. I just lay there for a while, watching her, letting myself get lost in this fleeting moment. There was something mesmerizing about her relaxed features, the slight blush on her cheeks, and the way her hair fell softly across the pillow. I didn't want to disturb this fragile peace, but the desire to touch her was stronger. Careful not to wake her, I ran my hand over her shoulder and gently pulled her towards me. She muttered something inaudibly in her sleep and pressed herself closer to me. Her warmth, her closeness filled me with calm and some special tenderness. After a few minutes, Anna slowly opened her eyes, still clouded with sleep, and looked at me. The corners of her lips twitched, and a lazy but sincere smile bloomed on her face. "Good morning," I said quietly, lightly touching her cheek. "Good," she whispered back, her voice soft and slightly hoarse from sleep. We looked at each other, and in this look there was everything: affection, trust, calmness, and something else, deeper and more personal. Anna reached out and lightly stroked my cheek with her fingers before resting her head on my chest. "I wish this morning could last forever," she said, closing her eyes. "It can," I answered, hugging her tighter. We lay there for some time, not in a hurry and not thinking about business, worries, or time. There was only this morning, only us, only this quiet, warm space, full of light and calm. Sometimes the simplest moments are the most meaningful. I heard her exclamation of delight, and a wave of satisfaction swept through my body. Wow, second time in one night. You can definitely get used to this. She looked at me and smiled. I could get used to this, she muttered. I shuddered slightly. What if she can read minds? A thought flashed through my head. We fell back into blissful sleep. About 2 hours later, I woke up from strange sounds coming from the end of the corridor. I soon realized that the source of the noise was much closer. All Anna's attention was focused on me. She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Now it's my turn, she whispered with a slight smile. Anna approached without looking away, and her movements were confident and smooth. Time seemed to slow down, and the space around us narrowed to the limit. We dissolved in this moment where every gesture, every breath was filled with deep intimacy and trust. When it was all over, we froze, tired but happy, enjoying the aftertaste of this moment. Anna pressed herself close to me, her breathing gradually evened out, and silence enveloped the room again. God, this woman is killing me. I thought she loved me. She straightened out on my chest and sighed with satisfaction. I love you. I don't deserve you or your love, but I will accept it and I will never, ever let it go, she said. Okay, I think I'll leave it at that, although this was not a question. We snuggled and kissed for a while. I think my reproductive equipment may never work again. Anna, on the other hand, was over the moon. She hummed and sang softly to herself as she stroked my belly and played with my chest hairs. I looked at the alarm clock and saw 7 a.m. I tickled my love's ribs, and she laughed, squirmed, and curled up into a ball. I crawled out of bed and ran to the bathroom to answer nature's call. Anna soon joined me and offered to help. He felt her caring touch as a special intimacy was established between them. A slight smile crossed his face, and his eyes closed from overwhelming emotions. She gently touched his shoulder and whispered, I have to take care of our little secret. Now he is special to me. Her words sounded warm and sincere, filling the moment with tenderness and trust. We got dressed and went to the kitchen. There was no one there yet. Anna started cooking, put the water on boil, and started making coffee. She was singing a Russian song, and I asked her what kind of song it was. This is a Russian lullaby. It is sung only to a loved one. She looked around. I don't see anyone else here, she giggled. Isn't it cute? We drank coffee and had breakfast while waiting for the lost young people to appear. Don't you think they were hurt? Anna asked with some concern. At that moment, the door at the end of the corridor opened, and 2 lovers came out with a child in Angelo's arms. Svetlana looked like a teenager in love. Angelo was in an alternate reality. I don't think it was possible to take the smile off his face with an explosive. They entered the kitchen in a trance, smiled at us, and said, Good morning. I pretended to check my watch and said, Oh, I thought it was late. Where have you been? They blushed and looked at the floor with sinful smiles on their faces. We, lost track of time. He blushed again and took Svetlana's hand. There was delight and passion in her eyes. She looked at him with awe. Do you know that he injured his leg in the war? He has a prosthetic lower right leg, and he's still doing great. Her gaze changed to one of awe as she stared into his eyes. Angelo's color turned a deep purple. Yes, we heard, I said, smiling like a Cheshire cat. Anna lowered her eyes and giggled. Angelo raised his hand and said, Well, it wasn't a funeral in your room last night. Anna spat coffee on the breakfast table. Oh, you heard that, huh? She said. I wasn't going to let my lover go unprotected. Your sister was scared by a big snake. Anna stared at me, and the others just stared. Okay, it's time for breakfast, said Anna. She laid out breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast and bacon, orange juice, tomato juice, coffee and tea. Then she blew into my ear. We need to maintain the power of the snake, she giggled. We sat down and everyone, including Mikhail, had breakfast. We laughed and shared stories from the past, theirs and ours. Angie told how he lost his leg, and the look on Svetlana's face was a mixture of awe, sadness, and pure passion. We cleared the table and moved into the living room. Angelo, Svetlana, and Mikhail occupied the sofa, and I sat in my chair with my favorite foot pillow. Anna performed surgery on my neck and did an excellent job. At that moment, the sat phone rang. I reached over and picked up the phone as Anna licked my cheek. "Hello?" I answered. "You must be Charles Carson." "Yes, it's me. Who is this?" "I am the father of your close friend. Is he doing well?" I looked at Angelo, who was kissing Svetlana's ear as she giggled. "In a sense, sir." Laughter was heard at the other end of the line. "Tell him that the service he asked for has been put into effect. Do you have a TV there?" "Yes, sir, I have a satellite dish." "You should watch the evening news. Tell him his mom says hi and reminds him to treat that young lady with respect. And one more thing, tell him that I'm proud of him." The connection has been lost. "Who was it?" asked Angelo. "It was Angelo Cardona SR, I answered. Angelo almost fell off the couch. He said that the service you asked for had been carried out and that we should watch the evening news. What do you think he was talking about? I asked my father for help. I thought that he could help us with our Dmitri problem. I looked at my watch. It was only about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so we had some time. We listened to music and talked. The girls prepared dinner and we ate. We took a couple of bottles of beer, some wine, and went into the living room to watch TV. The K22 channel didn't show anything interesting. It was 6:05 p.m. and the news had just started. I switched to KTVA channel 11. Nothing there either. I was about to change the channel when the breaking news logo appeared. Just now, the calm of the southwestern part of Anchorage was disturbed by gunfire. The FBI and Alaska State Police raided a local nightclub. Leningrad became the scene of a shootout between federal agents and law enforcement officers, which resulted in the death of 3 people and 4 injuries. Among the dead were club owner Dmitry Godasov and 2 employees. 4 more were seriously injured as authorities seized more than 100 pounds of controlled substances and nearly $1 million in cash. 6 women were also arrested on charges of providing sexual services for money. The raid was carried out following an anonymous call. Authorities are confident they have dealt a major blow to organized crime in Alaska. More details in future issues. And now to the sports news. I looked at Angelo and smiled. He looked at me and grinned. Anna walked up to Angelo, lifted him off the couch, and kissed him so hard it took my breath away. Svetlana jumped up and pushed her sister away. "He's mine," she said. I just thanked him for what his father did. "I'll thank him myself," said Svetlana, "and I'll thank his father when we meet." Anna approached her sister and hugged her. "I have my own Yagadka. I'm sorry if I offended you." The girls made up, and we started discussing what to do next. Angelo still had about a week's vacation, and he and Svetlana spent a lot of time in her bedroom. The noise increased. By the end of the week, FBI agents and state police had stopped by. Sergeant Walt Anderson and 2 agents called from their car and asked if they could come in. I said that, of course, just let them be careful with the Sprite strip. After hanging up the phone, I thought. Luckily, I replaced my driver's license with a new one shortly after moving and rarely used it. I told the girls to take Michael and hide in the safety room and close the door. Angelo and I then slid the large chest of drawers toward the door, effectively hiding the entrance. We returned to the living room and waited. I didn't think it was anything serious, but I had no way to explain the presence of the girls. Then it dawned on me, their clothes and diapers. We grabbed everything, packed it into suitcases, and took them to the garage, along with 4 packs of diapers. We carefully stacked everything behind the snowmobile and covered it with the famous tarp. In the corner, they almost disappeared from view. We just had time to grab a beer and plop down on the sofa. Law enforcement officers arrived in about 2 minutes. I met them at the door and invited them in. He offered me some beer. They politely refused. They sat down and Sergeant Anderson asked, "Do you know Anna Donchina? The name doesn't mean anything to me." Joe walked over and laid his head on Walt's knee. "Hey, buddy, how are you?" Special Agent John Travers looked at the dog and said, You weren't kidding when you said you knew him, right? Mr. Carson, your name came up after the raid on Leningrad. Can I see your driver's license? I got my real license. The agent examined them carefully and returned them. Do you remember what happened to your old license? As far as I remember, when they gave me these, they still had the old ones. Why is this important? During the raid, we found receipts and records, including some pretty explicit photographs. 2 women are listed as missing, and a 3 to 4 month old baby is missing. Photos of the older woman were found on the cell phone we found in the Tahoe of the 2 guys we busted here on Thursday. The photo files, as well as a text message, were sent to their boss, Dmitry Godasov. Your name is listed as the last person to see Miss Donshin alive. No idea, gentlemen. I don't recognize any names or photographs. I'm confused. The officers asked a few more questions and finally stood up. Walt shook my hand. I'll let you know if I can. Try to keep in touch, the FBI agent said, nodded and thanked me for my help. They left, and Angelo and I stood looking at each other. Finally, Angie said, "Do you think it's worth releasing them?" I grinned. No, let the girls worry a little more. Laughing, I headed into the back room. We moved the chest of drawers and opened the door. The girls came out, looking around with caution. Have they left? Will we be arrested? Anna asked. Mikhail began to be capricious, and Mom immediately took out lunch. We talked a little, and then Angelo began to get ready for the trip. There were a lot of emotions, and Svetlana cried almost all the time. Angie swore that he would come back and take her home. Saturday morning dawned cloudy and unpleasant. We packed Angelo's things at excursion, and the girls and Michael joined me on the trip to Anchorage. Although I wasn't sure it was completely safe, I lost the vote. Angelo caught his flight, and we returned home in a gloomy mood, awaiting his return. Angelo Cardone Jr. arrived in Seattle at SeaTac Airport. His 2-week trip to Alaska left him in awe, and he was still reeling from the overwhelming emotions. It wasn't just about sex. He hadn't felt this happy since he went to Afghanistan. He caught a taxi to his parents' house, and on the way he mentally rehearsed the upcoming conversation. The taxi pulled into the circular driveway in front of their house, and Angelo prepared to make his case to his parents. He grabbed his bags and headed to the front door. He had just raised his hand to ring the doorbell when it swung open, and the second most important woman in his life wrapped him in a bear hug. Bridget Shanae O'Malley Cardone, all 5 feet 3 inches tall, kissed her son with all the motherly love she could muster. "Oh, my boy, welcome home. How are you? Did you miss me? Are you hungry? Tired?" He smiled. "Hello, Mom. I missed you too." She led him into the dining room and sat him down in his traditional seat to his father's left. She hurried to her place to the right of Angelo Sr. and, sitting down, shouted into the kitchen. "Maria, he's home." His father sat with a satisfied smile on his face. "I see you've already met the commander-in-chief," he grinned. "Is she always like this?" Angelo smiled. "How are you, son?" "Great, Dad. I had an amazing trip, a great vacation, and met some very, interesting people." "Yes, that's what I understood," said the father, taking a sip of wine. Meanwhile, Maria, their Mexican housekeeper, brought dinner. She put lasagna, meatballs, pan, and her signature jalapeno garlic bread on the table. Maria then pulled Angelo into a tight hug and covered him with kisses. She knew him almost all his life and treated him like a son. They said a prayer and began to eat. The dinner passed in a warm, family atmosphere, and soon they were drinking coffee and relaxing. "Okay, son, tell me what's happening," said the father. Angelo looked down and stared at his coffee cup. "Dad, I met a girl. She is beautiful, smart, kind, and she cares about me. And I care about her too." He took a deep breath. About her and her son. He raised his eyes and looked at his parents. His father looked at him carefully, without betraying his thoughts. The mother looked shocked, her eyes widened. "Child? Does she have a child? Was she married? How did you meet her?" Angelo told them the whole story. He ended with the words, "And when I first saw her, I felt trembling." I knew it, Mom. I knew it was her. I could stop looking, and I'm ready to do anything for her. He fell silent. There is only one thing. It doesn't matter to me, but it might change your opinion of her. He looked at his parents with an adult, serious look. But it won't change my feelings. Speak, son. Let's make this clear right away, the father said calmly. Angelo took a deep breath. She was a girl of easy virtue. Charlie Carson pulled her out of this life, her and her sister Anna. He also saved their lives. Anna is a beautiful girl, and Chuck is crazy about her. But Svetlana is special, and I love her. His father did not take his eyes off him. His expression remained unchanged. The mother looked as if she was still processing what she had heard. Finally, she turned her gaze to her husband. She could see the gears working in his head, but she couldn't guess what he was thinking about. After a few moments, he turned to his wife. "Well, dear, what do you think?" Bridget looked at her husband and then at her son. "Do you really love her?" "With all my heart, Mom. She is the best thing that ever happened to me. When Mary Louise left me after being shot, I thought I would never be able to trust women again. I dated just about everyone so as not to upset you, but I never felt that same spark. When Svetlana looked at me, I decided that I was the luckiest son of a bitch in the world. Then Chuck told me that the girls told him I was busy, although I didn't even say a word to her. And then she saw my leg, and she felt so sad that I was injured. We talked about what happened, and I told her that my fiancé left me after I got shot. He chuckled and said that Svetlana called Mary Louise a heartless bitch, and said that if she ever met her, she would claw her eyes out. I laughed and told her that if Mary Louise had not left me, I would never have met her. Instead of attacking her, she should hug her and thank her. Angie smiled, remembering the conversation. Svetlana blushed and said that she would think about it. Angie's mother smiled. "And what is the name of my new grandson?" she asked. The moment of truth has come, Angie thought. With your blessing, his name will be Michael Angelo Patrick Cardone. I'll call him Mikey, but according to Uncle Charlie, I'm the only one allowed to do that. I think it's because his mom thinks I'm wonderful. He smiled and blushed slightly. This caught his father's attention. The mother was overjoyed. The father said, "Well, this makes me happy and will probably greatly surprise your maternal grandfather." He thought for a minute. "Are you sure about this girl, son?" "Yes, sir. More than sure. She makes me feel alive. I'm going to propose to her and would like to have your blessing, but it will happen one way or another. So when can we meet her and our new grandson?" "I need to talk to Fred Schultz and get new documents for them. Then I need to meet with Charlie's lawyer about the prenuptial agreement." "For you or for Charlie?" asked the father. "For Charlie. I don't want him to go through the same shit he went through with Selena. He doesn't know it yet, and it might make him angry, but it's for his own good. I'll talk to Anna and explain everything. I hope we will remain friends after this, but I feel like I owe it to him." The father looked at him. "I understand why you do this, Angie, but it could ruin your friendship. Think about it, son, and be careful." "I promise, Dad." We finished dinner, and I headed out to my F-150 that was parked in their garage to drive home. As I drove away and waved to my parents standing on the porch, my father turned to my mother and said, "Well, honey, what do you think?" She thought for a moment and said, "I haven't seen him this happy since he told us he proposed to Mary Louise Jordan. This heartless girl tore his heart out, and I agree with his admission that he only dated girls for our sake. They definitely didn't make him happy." Angelo S.R. looked at his wife. "As always, you hit the nail on the head. I think our son is on the right track. But no matter what, we will always be by his side. And that smart guy got the better of you when he mentioned his grandson." He chuckled and added, "I think he knows what he's doing." Then he got serious. "I just hope he doesn't ruin his friendship with Charlie." I slept great that night, but I missed Svetlana and Mikey. The next day, I visited my Irish family. O'Malley's grandfather was delighted with his future great-grandson. Boy, I'm glad you found someone. Are you sure about this girl? It's not the same as the previous one, is it? No, sir. She is real, as they say. She knows about my injury and takes it calmly. You'll like it, Grandpa. It's a pity that Grandma won't be able to meet her. Grandfather sighed heavily and said, knowing your grandmother, she already knows everything. Grandmother died about 4 years ago from heart disease. Thank you, Grandfather. Glad you're happy too. I said goodbye and went home to watch football. I sat down in front of the TV and called my friend Fred Schultz. We met at the service. He was a good guy, but he walked on the dark side. He was an expert in document forgery and worked for not very good people. He was an expensive specialist, but he owed me. I pulled him out of a burning Humvee before I was shot in the leg. He answered the third call. I hope it's something important, he chuckled. The Seahawks are about to score. Fred, I need a favor. Anything for you, buddy. You know. I explained what I needed and why. Why don't I stop by your place in 20 minutes to get some information? I'll start working tomorrow. Great, Fred, and thank you. Always happy to help, buddy. Just make sure Arlene and I get an invitation to the wedding. Consider yourself invited. Monday morning, I went to see Judge Deborah Guest. Her assistant led me into the office. How is Mr. Carson doing? I haven't seen or heard from him since he got divorced. He's fine, ma'am. The reason I'm here is because he's really into a young lady and I'm trying to help him. Then I told her the story of his adventures and romance. After that, I shared my idea and asked her opinion. Well, she said, you can prepare a marriage contract, even get a signature on it, but without notarization, it will not be valid. How are you going to organize this? I hope this will not be necessary. When I explain to Anna what it is and what it means, I hope she will sign it without hesitation. And then when she gives it to Chuck, I hope he tears it up. I think they care about each other enough that money doesn't matter. She studied me carefully. This could be disastrous for you, Mr. Cardone. Are you sure you want this? And why do you need 2 marriage contracts for each lady? Well, you see, it doesn't matter. I don't want to know. I will prepare documents for you. While her assistant was preparing the papers, we talked. I commented on the photo on her desk of her wife and little girl. She was about 2 years old. Yes, she said, this is our daughter. We adopted her about 1.5 years ago. She looked at me for a moment. You know, Dr. Carson and his wife wrote a brilliant letter of recommendation in support of our adoption. They were very grateful for my efforts in Charlie's case during his divorce, so I have a vested interest in his happiness. She looked at me intently. Don't spoil it, she said. There were many rumors about Senator Cardona. Due to his Italian roots, many speculated that he had ties to the mafia. However, the only family he kept in touch with was Mrs. Cardone and Angelo Jr. However, he served in military intelligence for the United States Marine Corps. After his discharge, he also worked briefly for the FBI. So the service he asked for was simply a phone call to the special agent, the Fairbanks bureau chief, who in turn relayed the information to the Anchorage field office. After the police operation, the head of the agency in Anchorage called his figurehead in Fairbanks, who in turn called Mr. Cardona, thanked him for the tip, and said that he now owed him. Father Angelo began to make plans based on the meager information he had. Everything was starting to come together. Meanwhile, in Alaska, Chuck says, I've been busy since Angelo left for Washington State. We drove to Girdwood, and I went into Dr. Johansson's office to talk to his assistant, Charlotte Domos. She was sitting in their break/lunch/conference/storage room. Their office was small, and there was a lull in business. She was drinking coffee and reading a medical journal. She looked up and said, Mr. Carson, isn't it? You don't have an appointment, which means it's a personal matter. She smiled. How can I help? The woman was pretty, but she was married to a former Army sergeant who now worked for the Department of Highways. I was going to make them an offer that would suit everyone. I have one proposal for you and your husband. It will be useful for both parties. Can you come to me tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock? What's on your mind? She asked. Something that will benefit both of us. I promise. Just come and listen. She tilted her head to the side, thought for a minute, and said, Okay, we could use a little variety. Thank you, I said. I don't think you'll regret it. I left, thanking the doctor and promising him another donation. Then I picked up my housemates who were window shopping, and we went home. At home, I called a local charter company in Anchorage and inquired about the cost of a one-way flight to Seattle for 4 adults, 1 infant, and a large dog. They quoted me a price for a Falcon 20 charter plane with 2 pilots and a flight attendant. I said that the price suited me and asked how long it would take to prepare. They told me it would take 2 weeks. I thanked them and put my notes away. Now everything depended on whether Angelo could get the necessary documents. We began to prepare for tomorrow's meeting. I took care of business in the garage while the girls cleaned the house, so it didn't look like a typical bachelor pad. Svetlana walked gloomily and missed Angelo. Anna felt sorry for her sister and tried not to make noise at night, so we made love quietly. Little Misha was capricious and whiny. Uncle Charlie tried to console him, but it wasn't the same. He missed his new friend. The next day arrived, and we woke up to a light blanket of snow. I turned up the heat and lit a fire in the fireplace. It became cozy. By midday, the snow had stopped, and we went out to play outside for a bit. At 4 o'clock, the Damos arrived. An old, beat-up Chevy C10 with 1,000,000 miles on the odometer pulled up in front of the house. At least that's what it seemed to me. The doors opened, and David and Charlotte Damos got out of the car. One look at them, and it was immediately clear that they were in love. They were wearing parkas and holding hands. This should go well, I thought. We invited them into the house, and the girls, Michael and Joe, greeted the guests. This is a wonderful place. Thank you for inviting us, but we don't understand how we can help you. We are returning to the States, but I don't want to sell this place or get rid of cars. I know how hard it is to start from scratch. So I suggest you move here. Use our machines. Look after the house. If we decide to visit this place, we will have a place to stay. The home is virtually self-contained, and you can defer the rent or mortgage payments you currently pay and save for yourself. Why are you doing this for us? Asked David. We hardly know you and are not related. What's the point of this to you? I'm impressed by what your wife is trying to create here. Having served in the military myself, I respect your sacrifice. You can help us, and we will help you. It's a win-win situation for both sides. I don't know, said David. Besides, I said with a grin, that pickup truck you're driving is just waiting to break down on the side of the road. I have a well-maintained Ford Excursion in my garage. A 3-year-old Jeep Wrangler and a snowmobile are parked outside. Take care of them, and I will be happy. Come on, I'll give you a tour. We walked around the house with Anna and Joe. I showed them 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, kitchen, living room, and garage. I explained how the solar panel system works, how to control the spotlights and remote controls. He showed me the site plan and talked about the chain and spike strip. Eventually, we returned to the living room where Svetlana was feeding Mikhail. Charlotte had a dreamy look. We could start a family, David, she said. He looked at her and smiled. Okay, honey, we agree. Looks like this will help everyone. We prepared dinner and sat down at the table. After dinner, we talked a little. David suggested a written agreement. I wasn't sure if we needed it or even if it would be legally binding. But we still drew it up, signed it, and asked Anna to act as a witness. They went home after I said that we would be in touch. In about 2 weeks. Then you can move. Thank you, Mr. Carson. Why do I feel so old? The next day, I called my parents. They were both at work, so I left a voicemail. I said I would call back later. I had some good news to share. In the evening, I dialed their number again, and my mother answered the phone. She put it on speaker, and soon I was talking to both parents. I told them I was heading back to Seattle soon, and that I had a surprise. They tried to get me to talk, but I refused to say anything. I just said that it should make them very happy, as it did me. He has a dog, the father jokes. Don't be ridiculous, my mother answered. And then she added, do you really have a dog? What, Mom? Do you have a dog, idiot? I adore my mom. It is impossible to carry it out. Yes, Mom, there is, and he's looking forward to meeting Giselle. Giselle is my mother's pride. Purebred French poodle lady Giselle from Seattle. Joe will definitely like her if his mom doesn't kill him first. Yes, Mom, and he will go home with me. My father burst out laughing. We look forward to meeting you both, son. Let us know when you arrive, and we will welcome you with open arms. Thank you, Dad. I love you, Mom. All I heard in response was a grumble as I hung up. About half an hour later, while I was recounting the details of the conversation to Anna and Svetlana, the satellite phone rang. Hello? Charles, this is Mr. Cardona. Can you talk? There are other people here, sir. Attractive girls? Yes, wake up. I need information about young ladies. Do you think you can find a place away from prying ears? Just a second, sir. I walked out onto the back deck and closed the sliding glass door. Okay, sir, what do you need? What is their last name and where are they from? Their last name is Donchina. They are from Vladivostok. What's the matter, sir? Nothing special, son. Just working on a wedding gift for you. And don't be mad at Angelo. He just cares about you. We'll talk soon, son. It was interesting. I walked back into the living room and plopped down in my chair, trying to figure out what had just happened. My favorite blanket suddenly turned into a cozy little ball that plopped down on my lap. Is everything okay, dear? I think yes. Seattle, Angelo says. Things moved quickly. Fred called me 2 days later and said he had everything except his social security cards. I started making preparations. I made a reservation at probably the best restaurant in Southeast Seattle, an Italian restaurant, O'Malley's. My mom owned and ran this restaurant. I invited Chuck's parents, his brother, sister, and her husband. I wanted everyone to get to know each other. I went to my parents and had dinner with them. My father was up to something, but he refused to tell me. The next day, Fred called and said everything was ready. I contacted Deborah Guest's office and stopped by to pick up prenuptial agreements. I prepared to return to Alaska. I called Chuck and told him I would be back in 2 days and asked if he could pick me up from the airport. I gave him the flight details and he promised he would be there. In Alaska, says Chuck. We lazed around for the rest of the week and finally Saturday arrived. I drove to Anchorage with 3 eager passengers. We met Angie in the arrivals area and Svetlana practically performed dental surgery on my friend, wrapping her arms around him. We took his luggage and headed to the car. We returned home and went into the house. Svetlana handed Mikhail to Anna, saying, "Here, look after your nephew." She then grabbed Angie's hand and pulled him towards her bedroom. I heard the door close and lock. About 5 minutes later, the following sound was heard. Yes, now, damn it. Oh God, yes. Damn, keep it up. Mom, what are they doing? Are they fighting? Asked Mikhail. Anna looked at me as if I shouldn't have changed my profession. Listen, cowboy, now we don't have to be quiet. I laughed and took little Mikhail in my arms. After about 2 noisy hours while we were having dinner, they finally emerged from the bedroom, with embarrassed blushes on their faces and hickeys on their necks and shoulders. Anna shook her head, and I couldn't stop laughing. They sat down at the table and, holding hands, stared at their plates. Svetlana raised her head and said with a smile, "Angelo proposed to me." She giggled and looked at Angelo. "What is the offer?" I asked in an innocent voice. The looks that looked at me guaranteed me the title of Fool of the Year. I smiled and congratulated them. We finished lunch and cleared the table. Angelo looked a little nervous and asked Anna if they could talk in private. So Svetlana and I took Mikhail and went into the living room. Angelo sat down at the table opposite Anna and took a deep breath. "Anna, I think you and Chuck love each other very much." You know about his previous marriage and what his ex-wife did to him. I'm his friend, and I'm your friend too. I don't want any of you to get hurt. Apart from the fact that you are special to me, Svetlana will kill me if I hurt your feelings." Anna smiled and said, "What's on your mind, Angelo? As a future son-in-law, you must be honest with me, otherwise Svetlana will not be the only Donshin sister who will punish you." I chuckled and then became serious. "Do you know how much Charles is worth?" She looked at me. I asked several times, but he refuses to talk. "I guess it's very. More than $12 million, I said. Her eyes widened and she held her breath. "My God, why didn't he say anything? I can only assume he didn't want you to think you only wanted him for the money. Charles is not that kind of person. He loves you for who you are. Your former profession means nothing to him. He loves you, and if he thinks I'm doing anything to ruin that, he'll kill me. But I have an idea. I asked his lawyer to draw up a prenuptial agreement for you so that you sign it with your old name and your new one. It means nothing until it is notarized and witnessed, but I hope Charles will do the honorable thing and refuse it. He might punish me, but that's a risk I'm willing to take." Anna looked at me, and for a moment I thought she would either kill me or cry. But this girl was made of stronger stuff. She looked down at her hands and then looked back into my eyes. "If you think it will help him love me more, although I don't think that's possible, I'll sign anything for him." She looked me closely in the eyes and said firmly, "And I will make sure you stay alive. Unless it doesn't work. In this case, Svetlana will become a widow before she becomes a bride." I swallowed and thanked her for her feelings. I took out the form and handed it to her. She read it, and her eyes widened again. "Is it really worth that much?" "Yes, but when you meet his family, you will see that he is worth much more." She sighed and signed both forms, one as Anna Donshin and the other as Anne Donish, the name listed on all her new documents. I collected all the papers, and we went into the living room. Svetlana and Chuck played with Mikhail. Svetlana was sitting on the sofa, and Chuck was sitting on the floor in front of them. I came up and sat down next to Svetlana. Charlie stood up and moved to his chair. Anna came and sat down next to him on the mantelpiece. Usually Anna plopped down on his lap and distracted him in every possible way. This time she was a little reserved. Time to make decisions, I thought. I started. "I have all your documents, and we are ready to leave. Since we are flying charter, there should be no problems with departure. There's one more thing left to settle." I turned to Charlie and handed him the marriage contract. I stopped by Mrs. Guest's office and asked her to prepare this. "You never told the girls how much you're worth, right?" He looked at the document in my hand. "No, it didn't matter to me." He looked up at Anna. She looked at him. "Sorry, honey," he said. "I should have told you, but I didn't care. I love you now and forever." Anna burst into tears and rushed to me. I thought I had found my true love, a person who would love and protect me. "I'm scared," she said. He looked at Anna, then at Angelo. Then he turned his gaze to Svetlana. The look on her face was devastating. He turned to Anna again and looked into her eyes. He held the marriage contract in his hands, and he understood everything. He knew what he needed to do. He tore the papers in half, and then in half again. He threw the scraps into the fireplace, where they smoldered and burst into flames. He turned back to his one and only and looked into her eyes. "Now we are both rich, and if that money is an obstacle, I know a couple of charities that would be happy to accept it." She pretended to be a surprised fish, gasped, and then jumped into his lap. And at that moment, the world regained harmony. When she pressed her lips to his, a sly smile appeared on his face. "This means we can buy a bunch of cars, expensive jewelry, beautiful dresses, a huge house, hang out in clubs, and spend money like we're rich and famous." He felt an unpleasant ache in his stomach and broke their kiss. Then he saw Anna's smirk as her lips curved into a crooked grin. She looked into the distance. "Or we can build a house with 4 or 5 bedrooms, fill it with our kids, and I can stay home and take care of them and my cowboy." She lowered her eyes, giving him the languid look that he loved so much. What do you think, cowboy? He loved this woman so much, even if she pulled his strings from time to time. He looked at her and smiled. Will you marry me, baby? He asked. She cried again, Svetlana too. Even Angelo had tears in his eyes. He knew he made the right decision. This needs to be celebrated. He got up and went to the pantry, taking out 2 bottles of champagne. We finished both bottles of French sparkling wine and started on the 3rd. Mikhail became a bottle baby because his mother drank champagne. It turned out that Svetlana cannot tolerate alcohol at all. Only champagne. 3 glasses, and she was already beginning to lash out and get very drunk. Anna, on the other hand, felt slightly relaxed but quite playful. Take me to the bedroom, Barry. I want to celebrate. We decided to call it a night, and he locked everything up and checked the electrical panel. He patted Joe on the head and hurried into the bedroom. Closing the door, he began to look for his beloved. The door to the bathroom was closed, and singing could be heard from there. Then he flushed the toilet, and the door opened. She was great. Naked, vulnerable, and similar to Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. He was speechless. She walked up to him and hugged him. Come and love me, Barry. I'm yours forever. But please be gentle and take your time. Now I'm your woman, and I'm no longer a girl of easy virtue. I will love you forever. And never mention money. If we lose everything tomorrow, it doesn't matter. If we fight all our lives, it doesn't matter. If you love me, that's all that matters. He hugged her and picked her up. He carried it to the bed, and almost magically his clothes disappeared. He ended up next to her on the bed and then had sex. She gasped and answered him. They didn't wake up until 8 in the morning. Sweat and love covered their bodies. They were both exhausted but happy. She nibbled his chest, and he squeezed her beautiful hips. I think we should get up, take a shower, and make breakfast for our babies, my dear, she purred. Well, if it's necessary, then it's necessary. They hesitated, but finally got out of bed, took a shower together, dried themselves, and got dressed. It took a while, but they eventually made it to the kitchen. There they found Angelo and Svetlana preparing breakfast. Little Michael sucked on a bottle of formula because his mother was careful. And by the looks of it, she was still a little tipsy. Good morning, kids, Anna said too loudly for the circumstances. Oh, my head, Svetlana moaned. Angelo laughed. We weren't having much fun when we got to bed. And she snores when she's drunk. I don't snore, Svetlana said offendedly, rubbing her temples and holding on to a cup of coffee. She looked at us with half-closed eyes and smiled. I never tolerated champagne. Everything else is welcome, but 2 glasses of champagne is my limit. I think I drank 3, and a little more. She grinned and blushed. Anna and I laughed, watching her embarrassment. We will have to drink ginger ale at our wedding. At least, I definitely have to, said Svetlana. We had breakfast, put away the dishes, and went into the living room with coffee. I called Northern Air Charters in Anchorage to book a flight to Seattle. The dispatcher suggested we take off in a week. Not 2, they had a return charter from Seattle-Tacoma Airport, and it would be more profitable than flying on an empty plane. I agreed and then called Charlotte and David Damos. I informed them of our plans and told them that the excursion would be in the Northern Air Charters parking lot on Tuesday, and they would have the house to themselves. They were delighted and thanked me, promising that they would take care of the house and make it their cozy nest. We spent the remaining time packing our things and preparing to leave. I called Seattle and arranged a rental with a representative from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Lincoln Navigator. We spent the rest of the week enjoying each other and finalizing our preparations. I have compiled a kind of instruction manual for managing the house. We discussed what our families would think when we returned home. The girls were a little nervous about meeting our parents. After all, their past professions could hardly be called monastic. I told Anna that my mom and dad would love her because I love her, and she is head and shoulders above Selena. Angelo told Svetlana that she was a safe bet. In the end, she gives his parents a ready-made grandson. On Saturday, we woke up, had breakfast, loaded the dishwasher, cleaned up the house, got dressed, and finished packing our personal items. We loaded everything into the excursion and headed to the airport. 45 minutes later, we arrived at the Northern Air Charters terminal and checked in. A staff member greeted us and handed me a pill for Joe. This is standard procedure for large dogs on long flights, especially if they have not flown before. This will just calm him down. Joe ate almost everything, so the pill didn't cause any problems. The co-pilot escorted us to the plane Falcon 20F, which was already waiting with the auxiliary power unit running. We boarded, buckled up, and the plane taxied for takeoff. The plane accelerated, took off, gained altitude, and headed southeast towards Washington State. Just over 3 hours later, we landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. We pulled up to the Garrett Air Search Terminal and stepped onto terra firma in Washington State. A girl with keys and documents was waiting for us at the terminal. I signed everything, and we went out to Lincoln Navigator. We drove Angelo, Svetlana, and Mikhail to the long-term storage parking lot. They came out and thanked us for everything. Don't forget, there's a private party at O'Malley's tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Don't be late. We will. Don't worry. We went to my parents' house. As we got closer, Anna became more and more nervous. Finally, she burst into tears and covered her face with her hands. I looked at her, slowed down, and pulled onto the side of the road. So, take a deep breath and exhale. Now tell me, what happened? I'm scared, dear. I'm meeting your parents for the first time, and they're going to know who I was. They won't understand and will hate me. I looked at her. They won't hate you. You are the love of my life. You don't look a bit like my ex-wife. This alone gives you a huge advantage. You are the one I want to spend my whole life with. You are the future mother of our children. My family will love you, I guarantee it. She looked at me with eyes red from tears, and I saw her looking for confirmation in my face. I want to believe you, but I'm scared. Did you really think I would let you go there alone? We are a team. We will get through this together. Just trust me, we will succeed, my love. She smiled and looked into my eyes. I believe you, Yagadka. You've already given me so much. I trust you. She leaned over and kissed me with tenderness and love. I stroked her cheek, put the car in gear, and returned to the road. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the circular driveway of my parents' house. Anna looked at the house, and the color left her face again. Be brave, honey. We will succeed. We got out of the car, put the leash on Joe, and walked to the front door. I rang the bell and took a deep breath. My mother opened the door, and her eyes widened in amazement. Your father was right, she said, looking at Anna and then looking at Joe. The love of my life swallowed nervously and smiled. Hello, Mrs. Carson. Nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot of good things about you, she said, holding out her hand. Well, said Mom, she definitely knows how to charm. At that moment, my father came up and looked around the scene. I told you he has a dog, he told his mother. She looked at him as if he had grown a second head. The father extended his hand. Hello, my dear, I am Charles Carson S.R. Apparently, you know my son. Anna blushed and shook his hand. Dad, Mom, let me introduce you to Anna Donesh. Anna, meet Dr. Charles Carson and Professor Samantha Williams Carson, Ph.D., my father and mother. Tension hung in the air like a heavy curtain. Finally. Well, said the father, I don't think she looks vulgar. Mom gave him that same look. Then she turned to Anna and took her hand. Nice to meet you, dear. Then she looked at me. She's a wonderful girl, son. And I don't feel anything bad for her. Anna looked at me with a question in her eyes. It's a long story. I'll tell you later. Can I come in? Of course, son, said the father. Good dog. We went into the living room and sat down. So what brings you home, son? Mom, Dad, we're going back to Seattle. We're going to get married. And we want your blessing. Poor Anna couldn't stand it anymore. I was a girl of easy virtue. Your son saved me. He saved my life. I love him with all my heart and soul. But I won't ruin his life or his family. If you don't approve of our union, I will return to Alaska. Her eyes were full of tears. She was losing control of herself. I knelt down to comfort her. My mother and father exchanged glances in a way that only people who have been married for many years can do. They understood each other without words. There is one story in our family. Chuck never heard it, my father said. We are talking about his maternal grandmother. My mother chuckled. Perhaps it's time for him to hear it. So, the father continued, Chuck's grandfather met and fell in love with an exotic dancer. His parents were of the old school and did not approve of this union, but he married her anyway. Now she's sunbathing topless on his yacht in Florida. What the hell is this? I thought. They are very happy, concluded the father. Mom got up and walked over to Anna. She knelt down in front of her. Darling, you are already head and shoulders above his ex-wife. There doesn't seem to be a single evil bone in you. And if there is even a grain of truth in his actions, words, and emotions, then we would be fools if we get in your way. My mother hugged Anna. Besides, she added with a smile, a hard-working girl will do him good. The father laughed and joined in the hug, hugging his future daughter-in-law. I felt relieved. Joe walked up to Anna, nuzzled her hand, and licked her cheek. Then I told them our story, explained what brought us here. I left out some details and decided they didn't need to know how their son played John Wayne with two guys and Svetlana, and got them to the point. Then I talked about the private party tomorrow at O'Malley's restaurant. Yesterday, Father Angelo called me about a family meeting. Now I understand much more, my father said with a knowing smile. We discussed who would sleep where, and I suggested that Anna take my sister's room. My father shook his head. I'm not so old that I don't understand that you sleep together. Just don't make too much noise. Mom rolled her eyes, and Dad got that same look from her again. He just grinned with a pleased expression on his face. Cardona family home. Angelo and his future family drove up to his parents' house. Before he could turn off the engine and open the door, the front door swung open, and the petite matriarch of the Cardona family ran out to greet him. She ran to the passenger door at the exact moment when Svetlana got out of the car and straightened her skirt. Bridget hugged her so tightly that Svetlana didn't even have time to react. Oh, my dear, dear girl, welcome to our home. Now, where is he? Sorry. Svetlana was surprised. Mikhail Angelo Patrick Cardona, of course. My grandson. Svetlana giggled. I hope he's securely strapped into his seat. She opened the back door, and so, in all its royal glory, the object of everyone's attention slept. At that moment, the elder Angelo joined them. Welcome to Seattle, Susan. Or maybe it would be better to say Svetlana. Angelo S.R. has learned a lot in the last week. Svetlana turned pale and approached Father Angelo. She took his hand and squeezed it. Thank you for everything you did for my son, my sister, and me. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him on the cheek. Thank you, Dad. She won his heart. Bridget held her grandson in her arms and lisped with him. Darling, this baby will open all the doors to his grandfather's heart for you. Her gaze moved from her son to his bride. I assume you have already taken possession of my son. Angelo blushed to the roots of his hair, and Svetlana laughed loudly. Angelo S.R. smiled to see his wife so happy and his son so embarrassed. Grandma Cardona led them into the house. Maria greeted them with an explosive greeting and almost took the baby away from Bridget. They moved into the dining room, where a brand new children's high chair was already standing between the grandparents' seats. Svetlana was in seventh heaven with joy from such a warm welcome that she and Mikhail received. She was happy. Angelo was pleased to see her smile and acceptance from her family. But the interrogation was just beginning. Father Angelo looked at Svetlana and asked, Young lady, you have clearly captured my son's heart. How do we make sure you don't use it? After being wounded in Afghanistan, his fiancée left him, saying he was no longer a full-fledged man. He was devastated and lost all interest in relationships. He only went on dates to please his mother and me. But he was never happy. How can we be sure that he is truly happy now? Svetlana looked at me and then at his parents. Angelo told me about Mary Louise. We discussed what I would say to her if I ever ran into her. She hesitated. Then she looked at me again. I told him I would have thanked her from the bottom of my heart for throwing Angie away, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten him. She looked at me again and sighed. I breathed a sigh of relief. And then I would claw her eyes out for treating Angelo that way. I'm sorry, baby. Just honest. Silence reigned. Then my mother broke into a big smile. Agree. I'm too old for this kind of thing, but I'll hold it if you get the chance. There was a burst of laughter at the table. Then she looked at my parents. I love your son with all my soul. And it seems that I'm already expecting a child from him. She turned and looked at my stunned face. Then I think we should quickly go to Father O'Brien so that there is no unnecessary talk, I said. We laughed and my mom was overjoyed. Organize a family dinner with the Carsons tomorrow night. This way we will all come together. And a big charity ball in favor of the hospital will take place next month. I think we can get an invitation from Chuck's dad, so we're planning on going. Your mom takes Susan out for a matching dress and accessories, so go and enjoy the evening, my father said. What about Mikhail? Svetlana asked. I think your future mother-in-law will look after him if we ask her politely, said the father. My mother smiled and tickled Mika's cheek. We have a crib for him so that he can sleep peacefully. You can take it with you when you move into Angie's apartment. Thank you, Dad, said Svetlana, her eyes filled with tears. She stood up, walked over and hugged my father and then my mother. She kissed her mother on the cheek and then hugged Mikhail. I stood up, shook my father's hand and hugged my mother. However, all my mother's attention was focused on the baby in the high chair, who was playing with cookies. It seemed that Svetlana and I simply ceased to exist. The father smiled, waved his hand and turned to mother and baby with a satisfied smile. Svetlana and I quietly snuck into my old bedroom. Don't ask. The Carson residence on the other side of town. My parents were still asking Anna about everything from her life in Vladivostok to her time in Anchorage. They asked about Svetlana and Mikhail. My father listened attentively and nodded approvingly in the right places. Mom didn't take her eyes off Anna's face, hanging on her every word. Finally, she said, I think you're honest about your feelings. Charles is not always the best judge of intentions, but he is a great judge of character. He certainly lets his feelings get the better of him, and he's a little stubborn, but I think he made the right choice. You seem to have a stabilizing influence on him. Her father smiled at her and squeezed her hand. She looked at him and then back at us. We want him to be happy. If you make him happy, then that's enough for us. We will do everything in our power to support you too. I think his sister, husband, and brother will be happy for you. But I wouldn't tell them about your past career just yet. Let them get to know you better first. But you shouldn't hide it either. Be honest, just like with us. Just don't talk about it with the panic with which you told us. She looked at Anna. I think they will love you. Anna sobbed and said to my parents, Thank you. I was so afraid of what you would think of me. But Charles was not afraid. He believed in us all. I blushed. Mom told us that the charity ball will take place in a month. Anna, you and I will go shopping for a stunning dress to amaze everyone. I don't think you had any reason to wear something like that in Anchorage. Anna remembered the dress she was wearing when Charlie saved her. She decided it was a little excessive for a charity event and gratefully accepted her mother's offer. We went to rest, and my father warned me. Just don't make too much noise. Otherwise, good night. He smiled at me, took my mother's hand, and led her to the bedroom. What will they think of us? They know what we will do. Anna was almost scared. I put my finger to my lips and told her to listen. As we started to undress, I heard a Johnny Mathis song come on from my parents' stereo. A certain smile. I smiled and hugged my beautiful lady. Why are you laughing? Dad gives it his all. When he and my mother wanted to. Well, be alone, they would turn on music so that my brother and sister and I wouldn't hear anything. I looked at her. Mom loves to make noise. This song is their wedding song. So everything is serious. The louder the music, the more Dad tries to impress Mom. The volume increased slightly. I saw Anna digesting what she heard. Then she smiled. I guess I'll have to thank your father, baby. I will definitely express my gratitude to him. Hey, you're mine. He's already busy. We fell on the bed, and I relived all my teenage fantasies. The next day, the ladies went shopping and met by chance at a shopping center. The sisters chatted animatedly in Russian, and Samantha Carson and Bridget Cardona introduced themselves to each other. There was an instant connection between the women. They went to the food court to have lunch and then finished their shopping at the clothing stores. Everyone returned home to relieve Grandpa Cardona of his babysitting duties. Bridget and Svetlana entered the house and found that Angie and Angelo had fallen asleep in front of the TV, and Mikhail was dozing peacefully on his grandfather's stomach. The girls giggled and took a few photos of the nannies who had done their job honestly. Everyone got themselves in order, and Maria literally pushed them out the door to go to dinner while she and her daughter took care of little Mikey. They arrived at an Italian restaurant called O'Malley's for a private family evening. Both families were well represented and drinks flowed freely. After the main course, uninvited guests appeared. 3 men in suits asked to speak to the older Mr. Cardona. He stood up, shook hands with 2, and hugged the 3rd tightly. Laughing a little, he turned to Angie, Charlie, and his father, beckoning them to come over. The 3 men apologized and joined the group. Angelo S.R. led everyone into a small private office. He closed the door and motioned for everyone to sit down. Gentlemen, this is Lawrence Smith from the CIA. The second gentleman is my good friend James Abbott from the FBI. And the third was Walter Carruthers of the State Department. They are here regarding our boys' little adventures in Alaska and my request for a second favor. When we, he pointed to Charles S.R., and himself, get this done, we will become the best fathers-in-law in the history of fathers-in-law. Chuck and Angie looked at each other and shrugged. Okay, you've got our attention. What awaits us? Mr. Abbott grinned and began. Guys, the story in Anchorage led to the discovery of a large spy network, as well as a network for trafficking in prohibited substances and people. The FBI is extremely grateful, so much so that we are ready to turn a blind eye to the disappearance of 2 young women and a 4-week-old baby. Charlie gulped and Angie thought, uh-oh. There is also the matter of the 2 dead thugs. But this is a matter for local law enforcement officers. It does not concern us. But thanks for that too. In addition, fake documentation and so on will be formalized and become legal. We have already contacted the Department of Justice, the Internal Revenue Service, Social Security, the Alaska Department of Transportation, and the State Bureau of Statistics. They all agreed to legalize your documents. After all, you can't judge 2 military heroes who helped their government, right? But I advise you not to try to borrow books from the library. The librarian there is too strict. There were smiles and laughter until the CIA officer said, Now about another matter, Angelo. It took a lot of effort to organize everything, and I had to grease the gears a little. Charles S.R. chimed in. I hope you have enough funds. Yes, sir, we greased the right hands and paid everyone who needed it. The person in question is already traveling to the States with a valid visa and green card. The only question is when and where. Chuck and Angie looked at each other again. The lights flashed above their heads at the same time. You couldn't. Angelo S.R. laughed and looked at the 2 young men. You will have to work off our gift in marriage for many years. Charles S.R. added, and of course, we intend to take all the credit. Your mothers don't know about this, so SHHH. The young people were stunned. They didn't know what to say. Finally, with smiles on their faces, they stood up, hugged their fathers, and shook hands with the 3 men in suits. This will make the girls the happiest. If, of course, we are talking about those same young ladies. The men giggled and smiled. Now please behave yourself and try to look like model citizens, okay? Both young men looked at the floor and said, Yes, sir, we promise. There was a knock on the door and Bridget Cardona opened it. Has the men's club finished its meeting yet? Yes, honey, Angelo S.R. said. Then come back to our party, please. We returned to the dining room and invited 3 government guests to join us for a cup of coffee. Life went on, and we began planning to attend the hospital's charity ball. The second Friday of December came quickly. Angie and I made a few purchases during the week and agreed that the best time to use them would be at the ball. We cut our hair and put on our rented tuxedos. Dad ordered a limousine, and we persuaded Maria to look after Mikhail for the evening. Shweta looked stunning in a form-fitting off-the-shoulder cream dress that accentuated her every curve, but did it with elegance. The dress had a knee-length slit with a gold zipper that went all the way down to her butt. She styled her hair in a French twist, with long blonde locks falling to her waist. Her makeup was flawless. We went to a party, taking our grandparents with us. At the Carson house, another limousine pulled up to the circular entrance and stood waiting. His back was facing the stairs, so he was surprised by his father's widened eyes and a sincere, "Wow!" Chuck turned around to see his future wife coming down the stairs in royal splendor. There is no word in the English language that better describes a woman than beautiful. And she was beautiful. Her dress was a strapless black sundress with a hem that ended 4 inches above the floor and a slit on the right side that went just above the knee. It was an elegant version of the dress she wore in Alaska. She hoped it would refresh Charlie's memory. Thick dark brown hair fell just below her shoulders. She was beautiful. His mother approached him and commented, "Your father was right. There is not a drop of vulgarity in it." She turned and looked at her son. "You're lucky. Love her madly and don't screw it up. And give me grandchildren." He looked away from his bride and smiled at his mother. "We'll try. Thank you, Mom." Samantha teared up. "You see what you've done? I ruined my makeup." Anna walked over and took Charlie's hands. "Have I passed the test, my dear?" I looked into her eyes and realized that this is exactly what I want. I had not yet returned the sparkle to her eyes, but they seemed to be starting to glow again. I took her shawl, which resembled a mantilla, and threw it over her shoulders. He took her hand. "Let's go to the party, my dear." We got into the limousine with my parents and headed to the city center, where the ball was already in full swing. We entered the room filled with a lively and energetic crowd. My father took us to a group of doctors and hospital managers and introduced us. They all knew my mother and exchanged warm greetings. Anna could hardly breathe from excitement. My father took her by the arm and introduced her as my bride and his future daughter-in-law. She quickly joined in the conversation with the ladies and their husbands. My mother circled her, beaming with pride at the attention Anna was getting. "Oh yes, I was there too. Don't think that I wasn't there." Around this time, a couple of major sponsors approached the crowd. They wanted to see what was causing such a stir. They stood at the edge of the group and listened. People admired the young woman who was the center of attention. I was proud of my beloved, but suddenly I realized that the curious couple was none other than Selena Chavez and her boyfriend, Alan Parsons. Parsons left Selena and walked towards a group of women who were admiring Anna, trying to strike up a conversation with her. Selena, left by him, was clearly unhappy. That's when she noticed me. "Well, someone decided to return to civilization. Where have you been? Cuckold. Away from you, girl of easy virtue. What is your friend doing? None of your business." She looked at Parsons and Anna. "I'll tear off his dignity and make earrings out of them, and this bitch is already a corpse." She was furious as this bastard tried to flirt with Anna. I pretended to try to understand who she was talking about and feigned surprise. "Oh, you mean my fiancé? No chance. She has too much class." Selena's eyes widened at my statement, and at that moment this idiot made his biggest mistake. He leaned over to whisper something to Anna, and his hand slid to her buttock. She turned around and hit him hard in the face, and the sound of the blow was like a rifle shot. I broke through to her side just as he swung at her and grabbed his hand, twisting his fingers back. There were several cracks, and he yelped. I put my arm around Anna's waist and pulled her towards me. She shuddered slightly, and I calmed her down in a soft voice. "Oh, thank God, baby." This man was harassing me. Selena came closer and grinned. How do you know that she is your bride? I don't see the ring. Oh shit, I forgot. I got down on one knee and took out a velvet blue box. He opened it and took out a 3/4-carat diamond ring. Anna, will you marry me? She was choked with emotion and began to cry. Oh yes, baby, of course I will marry you. The crowd watching the entire scene burst into applause. Selena was furious. At that moment, security appeared and escorted Parsons out, followed by an enraged Selena. I couldn't think of a better scenario. Meanwhile, at the other end of the hall, Angie and Svetlana were in the center of an equally enthusiastic crowd. He simply got down on one knee and took out his ring. Svetlana, will you do me and Mikhail the honor of becoming my wife? Oh yes, smart girl, I love you so much. Bridget could not hold back her tears of happiness, having just shown her friends photographs of her newborn grandson. Who is this woman, my beloved? Svetlana asked, looking at Angie. Honey, this is my ex-fiancée. She rejected me when I was injured in the army. My mother was showing Mary Louise pictures of little Mikey when Svetlana walked up to her and extended her arms. As promised, she decided to deal with her face to face. I just wanted to thank you for freeing Angelo from your bonds. Without this, I would never have met him and never had the chance to win his heart. Then she took Mary Louise's hands in hers, squeezed them tightly, and looked her straight in the eyes. Thank you very much, she said. Then she squeezed Mary Louise's hands so hard that she winced. I told Angelo that's what I'll do. I kept my word. Now, if I have your attention. Her expression changed, becoming cold and threatening. If you ever approach him again, speak disrespectfully to him, or dare to threaten our family happiness, I will punish you in ways you cannot imagine. Got it, cow. Her face lit up with a blissful smile again. The blood drained from Maria Louise's face. She wet herself and was embarrassed. With horror in her eyes and a trembling voice, she nodded. I understand. So sorry. Svetlana raised her head and kissed Mary Louise on the cheek. Thank you. Then she turned to Maria Luisa and said, I'm done with her. She turned and walked away, straight into Bridget's arms. After that, we enjoyed the rest of the evening. Chuck and Angelo danced with the 4 most beautiful girls at the ball, their brides and their mothers. The ball ended with a toast to our future happiness, and we went home. The next day, Angelo S.R. called the Carson house and invited everyone to brunch at O'Malley's restaurant. He promised a big surprise. Dr. Carson's face broke into a wide smile. I wonder what it could be. He laughed. We got into our cars and went to the restaurant. When we entered, we were ushered into a small dining room at the back of the main room. Angelo S.R., Bridget, Svetlana, Mikhail, and Angie have just arrived. We exchanged greetings and sat down at the laid table. Chuck noticed 2 empty seats. He grinned and looked at Angie. He nodded with a smile and pointed to his fathers, who looked very pleased with themselves. Angelo S.R. tapped his glass of water to get his attention. May I ask for your attention, please? Thank you. I know you all have questions about why Dr. Carson and I invited you here. Charles and I felt a little left out. The boys, he pointed to his son and Chuck, are getting all the fun. He then gestured to Anna and Svetlana, and their mothers are enjoying the blaze of glory. It's wonderful, and we don't want to take that away in any way. But we, Charles and I, also wanted to contribute to the general happiness. Dr. Carson came up with a great idea, worthy of the best fathers-in-law in the world. Let's just say, we're too cool to stay away. Now Angelo was smiling from ear to ear. Charles S.R. stood up and stood next to his friend. So, without further ado, because I myself can't stand it anymore, allow me to introduce you to Mrs. Anastasia Donshin, the mother of our brides. At this moment, FBI Special Agent James Abbott entered, accompanying a middle-aged woman with a tired and slightly frightened look. Anna and Svetlana's screams seemed like they could cause an earthquake as they jumped up from their seats, rushed to their mother, and embraced her in a tight hug. Tears flowed freely, and soon all three were on their knees, hugging each other and crying with happiness. Mrs. Cardona and Mrs. Carson were stunned. Charles S.R. and Angelo S.R. were extremely pleased with themselves. They shook Agent Abbott's hands and patted him on the back. "Good job, Mr. S. And the same to you, Mr. S. Our fathers were over the moon." Bridget and Samantha came over and kissed their husbands like there was no tomorrow. The Donchian sisters then ran up and hugged Angelo and Charles. "Thank you, Dad," Anna said. The light in her eyes came back on. She was alive again. "Oh, Dad, thank you so much," Svetlana said. "She's your wedding present from all of us," Charles S.R. said. "Well, our lives started out great. We got married and gave Dr. and Mrs. Carson 4 grandchildren over the next 10 years. Angie and Svetlana have been together for 22 years. They have 3 new kids, and little Mikey graduated from the Air Force Academy and flies fighter jets in Alaska for the Northern Air Force. Everything is fine in the world. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Subscribe to our channel so your love doesn't cheat on you, and keep listening to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about it. Move on to the next one. 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 Move on to the next